Chapter 638. The pungent smell of blood was all over the mountain. The billowing smoke and the sword light that illuminated the whole city slowly fell. The sky-reaching platform was filled with ruins and broken walls. The buildings that once covered the entire top of the mountain had completely collapsed. The painting mountain was divided into two. The mighty heaven-reaching platform almost instantly became a ruin. That unparalleled sword strike had almost completely split open the entire painted building mountain. A cliff that was nearly 1,000 meters deep was cleaved out of the heavy mountain. The cuts on both sides of the cliff were as smooth as a mirror. Even though the sword light had disappeared, the mirror-like sides of the cliff were still suffused with an incomparably cold chill and sword qi. Li Tianlan looked away from Chen Binghe and looked at the ruins of the heaven-reaching platform. Collapsed buildings, broken gardens, muddy water, and twisted trees. One sword split the mountain. That could almost be said to be the sword of God. The sword light that illuminated the night swept everything with pure destruction. Nothing could remain intact under this sword. The heaven-reaching platform was completely destroyed. But not many people died on the heaven-reaching platform. As he left Autumn Water, the Qin clan was fully prepared for everything today. All the elites of the Purgatory of Heaven capital gathered at the heaven-reaching port were captured and sent to the Painting Mountain. Almost all the experts of the Qin clan gathered and formed the heaven-reaching formation. Chen Binghe faced the enemy with the world sword. Some women and children of the Qin clan had been transferred in advance. So there was little blood and few dead people in the ruins of the heaven-reaching platform. But the Qin clan was finished. With the hundreds of elites of the Purgatory of Heaven capital as the bargaining chip and the heaven-reaching formation, the Qin clan had a great chance of winning this battle. So it could be said that the entire Qin clan fought against Li Tianlan with all their strength. No one could have thought that Li Tianlan and 13-story building could split the mountain with one sword. That sword, with a violent sword rain, smashed most of the formation of the heaven-reaching formation and split the Painting Mountain. Countless experts of the Qin clan were killed and injured. The women and children of the Qin clan might still be able to survive. But the entire Qin clan, after this battle, was like a beast that had lost its claws and teeth, without any deterrence. In the world, it was often easy and difficult to go up and down. Hundreds of years of foundation, countless glories, everything completely collapsed in a single sword strike. The bloody cruelty covered the heads of every member of the Qin clan. This was the price of failure. On this day, perhaps there were still many people on Painting Lu Mountain. But in Li Tianlan's mind, there was no one alive on this mountain. Li Tianlan finally withdrew his gaze. His gaze landed on Chen Binghe. It was indifferent and cold without any pity. Qin clan, his voice floated in the two halves of the painted building hill, like the wind and the waves. Unworthy to wield a sword. Unworthy to wield the sword of North Sea. He didn't deserve to hold the sword of the Li family. Like the coldest sentence, this sentence directly determined the fate of the entire Qin clan. Li Tianlan. You bastard. In the long silence, Chen Binghe finally digested everything in front of him. The Painting Lu Mountain had been split into two, and the sky-piercing platform had been reduced to ruins. More than half of the experts that the Qin clan had painstakingly nurtured for many years and accumulated over several generations had perished. Chen Binghe's entire body began to tremble. The pitch-black myriad worlds vibrated in his hand, and a violent killing intent surged out of it along with surging sword light. Little bastard. Damn you. Li Tianlan loosened his palm. Xianyuan Feng's huge blade disintegrated once again, turning into small, exquisite swords floating in the air. The whole sword formation moved slowly in the air, covering half of Painting Lu Mountain. The subtle sword light shuttled slightly, cutting the ropes behind Li Tianlan one after another. Nearly 200 elites of the Purgatory of Heaven capital, who had been tortured until they were extremely weak, fell to the ground one by one. The sword formation froze in the air, completely protecting these elites. Chen Binghe suddenly burst into laughter. His laughter was miserable and resentful. He stared at the sword formation behind Li Tianlan. The sword formation composed of 12 famous swords was still exquisite, but compared to the beginning, it had become extremely dim. What this meant was self-evident. Without this sword formation, this chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Formation, what are you? Li Tianlan, what are you now? Li Tianlan remained calm and collected. The 13-story building split the mountain with one sword. In terms of power, the earth-shattering sword strike just now was infinitely close to the peak of the half-step invincible realm. Of course, Li Tianlan couldn't use that sword strike, but his sword intent was perfect, and the sword formation of the 13-story building was also natural. The moment the two combined, the sword strike was pushed to the extreme. But the core reason was actually energy. The energy absorbed by the 13-story building from the devil troop was completely used in this sword, causing a scene that was almost earth-shattering. Now the 13-story building returned to the state of nirvana and could only defend passively. But Li Tianlan without the 13-story building was still Li Tianlan. He flicked his palm gently in the void. The extremely clear sound of the sword resounded through Painting Lu Mountain on both sides. A clear light bloomed in Li Tianlan's hand. It was not any sword of the 13-story building. This sword light was extremely cold and sharp. It was so arrogant that it did not belong to the mortal world. Autumn Water Sword. Chen Binghe's expression became more and more ferocious. Li Tianlan thought of the elites of the Li family who died on the mountain road. He knew them, and he didn't. His voice grew calmer and calmer. Without the sky-reaching formation, what are you? Chen Binghe laughed wildly. Who said I don't have the sky-reaching formation? Who said that? The pitch-black myriad world sword suddenly rose up with a violent sword light. In an instant, in different directions of Painting Lu Mountain, in the soaring smell of blood, bolts of lightning spread to the top of the mountain. Lightning and thunder from different directions quickly approached the top of the mountain. There was a touch of mockery in Li Tianlan's eyes. This was indeed the sky-reaching sword formation. All the power was gathered in one place. But could such a sky-reaching formation reach the sky? The clear light flashed on the top of the mountain for a moment, and Li Tianlan took a step out. His figure leaped over the sky, crossed the cliff that was like a natural moat, and appeared directly in front of Chen Binghe. The Eternal World sword chopped down with endless thunder. Densely packed arcs of electricity spread out in a frenzy. The lightning kept moving forward from all corners. Those were the thunder-shocking realm experts of the Qin clan who had not died. Everyone charged at full speed. Everyone's power turned into lightning, and in an instant, they combined with the Eternal World sword. There was only one Eternal World sword. But the moment the sword light chopped down, the thunder filled the whole sky. The autumn water sword in Li Tianlan's hand vibrated. The dazzling lightning seemed to tear the whole sky and smash toward Li Tianlan. This was Chen Binghe's sword move. This was the sword move of all the remaining thunder-shocking realm experts of the Qin clan. This was the last sky-reaching formation. Li Tianlan's figure suddenly spun. There was no 13 floors. Li Tianlan was still Li Tianlan. The heavenly sun was still the heavenly sun. The cold sword light kept blooming in front of him, and the sword energy, which seemed to tear the sky apart, spread and condensed as Li Tianlan's body rotated. In an instant, an extremely sharp storm appeared on the broken Painting Lu Mountain. The storm kept spinning with Li Tianlan's rotation and turned into a tornado that filled everything. The tornado tore the space, and all the air around it was distorted in a state visible to the naked eye. Li Tianlan's figure was getting faster and faster, and the sword light was getting sharper and sharper, as if endless sword energy was flying constantly. The dazzling clear light grew bigger and bigger with unimaginable strength, and finally turned into a whirlpool of sword energy of nearly 100 meters. It was natural and flawless. The Eternal World sword fell. The storm brought by the autumn water spun and directly hit the thunderbolts that were as dense as the sky. Boom! In the huge roar, more than a dozen thunder-shocking realm experts and Chen Binghe broke out with all their strength, and the thunderbolts that were as solid as substance shook violently in an instant. The rotating storm tore the thunderbolts that were like the sky without any stagnation. The sword light kept spinning. It looked extremely calm, but it was extremely crazy. Pieces of thunderbolts kept breaking and flying, exploding in every corner of the Painting Lu Mountain. The arc of light spread and scattered everywhere. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Only the clear light kept spinning in the blue sky, splitting the endless thunderbolts, cutting everything, and moving forward bravely. No power could interrupt the storm-like sword move. This was not the 13 floors. This was Li Tianlan's own kendo. The sky-splitting move. The earth-splitting sword energy kept flying with the most stunning clear light. The autumn water tore the thunderbolts that were like the sky. Several thunder-shocking realm experts who had rushed to Qin Binghe's side were torn apart in an instant. The sword light didn't stop. The shining arc of the autumn water sword hit the blade of the Eternal World sword in an instant. It was straightforward, decisive, and fierce. There was no stalemate or suspense at all. The 10,000 worlds that represented the Qin clan's hundreds of years of glory and faith shattered in an instant. The pitch-black sword flew into the heavenly platform with lightning arcs and exploded into a pile of rubble. The autumn water that was shining with a clear light did not stop moving forward at all. It cut Qin Binghe's body in half as he screamed in fear. A large number of thunderbolts spread and disappeared in the constant turbulence. Only the indomitable storm grew fiercer and fiercer. The shining cyan light swept through the ruins of the Painting Lu Mountain with the fierce wind and rushed into the jungle. Countless trees were broken and smashed. The electric arc between the mountains flickered for a moment and disappeared completely. Only the storm that gathered the clear light kept spinning, with death and irresistible majesty. Beihai, Zhongzhou State. On the night of September 3rd, Li Tianlan, the palace master of Emperor East Palace, entered the heaven-reaching port and climbed the Painting Lu Mountain. The Qin clan formed the heaven-reaching formation and fought with the power of the whole clan. The 13-story building broke the formation, and the sword split the mountain. That night, Qin Binghe, the swordsman of the Qin clan, died. 6 guests of the Qin clan died. 23 thunder-shocking realm experts of the Qin clan died. The heaven-reaching formation composed of nearly 1,000 elites of the Qin clan was slaughtered. The heaven-reaching sword of the Qin clan was cut off by the autumn water sword. There was no one alive in the entire Painting Lu Mountain. In the deep night, the bodies of all the thunder-shocking realm experts of the Qin clan, including Qin Binghe, were hung up. The strong smell of blood attracted countless vultures to fly over. Li Tianlan watched the vultures gnawing on their bodies in silence for a long time. Countless bodies gradually turned into skeletons without flesh and blood. Li Tianlan flicked his fingers and ignited the fire. The fire spread from the Painting Lu Mountain, devouring the bodies, the ruins of the heaven-reaching platform, and everything. Li Tianlan was silent for a long time. In the strong fire, he felt lonely for the first time. The fire was spreading. Li Tianlan slowly turned around. Nearly 200 elites belonging to the Li family and the purgatory of Heaven Capital looked at him, and their eyes were full of fanaticism. Someone knelt down first. Everyone knelt down one by one, densely and neatly. Greetings, young master. It didn't matter what their identities were. The purgatory of Heaven Capital was good. The Li family was good. From now on, they all belonged to Emperor Dong's palace. Li Tianlan raised his hand. A bright light flew out of his hand and fell on the ruins of the heaven-reaching platform surrounded by fire. The light kept twisting and extending, and finally turned into a sharp and cold long sword. 13 floors, divine weapon. Li Tianlan looked at the crowd kneeling in front of him and said calmly, "Get up, let's go to Mount Dibing." He went down the mountain first. Nearly 200 elites of the purgatory of Heaven Capital followed behind him in a mighty manner. Huangfu Qiushui, who struggled to stand up from the mountain road, followed the crowd. She looked at Li Tianlan in the front with a blank look in her eyes. At this moment, she seemed to suddenly not know what she was doing. The autumn water sword was still in Li Tianlan's hand. At this moment, everything in her sight seemed to be witnessing history. Witnessing the arrival of a real new era. Late at night on September 3rd. The fire filled the Painting Lu Mountain. In the blood and bones, the heaven-reaching platform of the Painting Lu Mountain was set on fire. Only the famous divine weapon belonging to Dong Huang remained there, cutting off everything on the heaven-reaching platform. End of this chapter. Bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 639. Time passed from late at night to early morning. The autumn rain turned into a rainstorm, sweeping the entire Beihai with a cool atmosphere. Beihai province was in the north. Strictly speaking, it was also a province without spring and autumn. After the cool summer passed and the rainstorm passed, the cold winter would come quietly. Just like Li Tianlan's journey, from Qiushui to Xingzhou, through the wilderness and the sea, the cold temperature went all the way north. The snow would fall in the cold temperature. The entire Beihai province was covered with snowflakes, beautiful and holy. The rainstorm was accompanied by thunder, and the world was in chaos. The sky above Tongtian port was gloomy and black. The world seemed to be unchanged. Rain was everywhere, day and night, and there was almost no light. Li Tianlan never left Tongtian port. Nearly 200 elites from the purgatory of heaven capital followed him out of Mount Yolu. As soon as they returned to the downtown area of Tongtian port, Li Tianlan directly booked the best hotel in Tongtian port. 187 people occupied 2 floors. In Beihai, it was midnight. Li Tianlan spent a lot of effort to find a doctor, and he accompanied the doctor to walk from room to room, checking the physical condition of each elite. Qin clan took advantage of the absolute control of Tongtian port to capture nearly 200 elites from the purgatory of heaven capital in the shortest time. This move was indeed ruthless, but the main purpose of doing so was to deal with Li Tianlan. All-World Sword, Qin Binghe, and Tongtian Formation. Chen Zhu used a head to directly infuriate Li Tianlan, and these nearly 200 heads that could be chopped off at any time were important chips to suppress Li Tianlan. Because of this, although these elites were inevitably tortured when they fell into Chen Zhu's hands, not many of them were really tortured. Most of them only had some seemingly serious external injuries, as well as a sense of weakness and powerlessness brought about by hunger and cold. After a few days of rest, they would basically be able to move freely. Several seriously injured elites were sent on a plane to leave Beihai that night. Li Tianlan walked from room to room. It was already the morning of September 4th when he sent the doctor away. The rain was still pouring. Li Tianlan sat in a rattan chair in the hotel, looking at the wind and rain outside through the huge French window. He was as quiet as a shadow. In the slight sound of footsteps, Huangfu Qiushui, who had changed into a white dress, walked over gently. She stood beside Li Tianlan and poured him a cup of tea. She had just taken a bath, and her dirty little face had become as clean as before. Her entire body was tender and delicate, and from head to toe, she seemed to be emitting a kind of lustrous and gentle radiance. There was no light in the room. She stood in the gloomy morning light like a white lotus, stunning the wind and rain outside the window. The tea in the small teapot rippled gently. Huangfu Qiushui put the teapot on the crystal table and did not speak. "How did you get in?" Li Tianlan glanced at her and frowned. Huangfu Qiushui had followed him from the beer to the sky bridge, up the painting mountain, and then to this hotel. Huangfu Qiushui didn't know what to do with Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan also didn't know why he let the girl follow him for so long. He looked up at the pretty face in the dim light. Her facial features were soft and delicate, like a work of art. In terms of appearance alone, she was not necessarily more beautiful than Dongqing Rushi and Wang Yuetong. But that touch of natural coldness was enough to turn into a fire in the eyes of men. It was a kind of charm without any deliberate intention. It was cold and clear, charming and clean, plain and light, but with a kind of unforgettable elegance. Martial god Huangfu. Huangfu Qiushui. Li Tianlan thought of these two names in silence. Huangfu Qiushui was slightly stunned and whispered, "I've been here all the time." She naturally followed Li Tianlan into this suite, took a bath here, and slept in the bedroom. Li Tianlan was busy taking care of the wounded of the purgatory of heaven capital, so he didn't notice. Perhaps the elites of the Purgatory of Heaven capital noticed, but they didn't say much. So the night passed very peacefully. Until Li Tianlan came, she personally made a pot of tea and put it in front of Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan glanced at her again. His eyes were calm and deep, and his pupils were almost pure black. There was indescribable coldness in the silence. Huangfu Qiushui's delicate body trembled slightly. She didn't know why, but every time she saw Li Tianlan's eyes, she had a kind of fear from the bottom of her heart. Her courage to fight with Li Tianlan at the same realm on the spiritual mountain seemed to have long disappeared. Li Tianlan suddenly lost some interest. He picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea, then said calmly, "You can go." Huangfu Qiushui was stunned. That charming and pure little face was filled with confusion, and it was breathtakingly beautiful. She asked subconsciously, "Where to?" "Wherever you want to go." Li Tianlan's voice was emotionless. Huangfu Qiushui stared at Li Tianlan blankly for a while. She gently bit her lip. In the dark environment, her lips were beautiful and rosy, shining with a seductive luster. "That, you." "Qiushui," she stammered and whispered, "can you give it back to me?" "Qiushui is not yours." Li Tianlan answered the question directly for the first time. Vaguely, he seemed to know why she had been following him. "That is my trophy. You have the right to take it back, provided that you defeat me." He looked at the pair of soft and charming eyes shining with countless emotions, and his tone was low like the temptation of a demon. Or Tianguang is on the spiritual platform. When you think it through, tell Tianguang, and then take it to Tiannan to find me. Qiushui is yours. And the Huangfu family is mine. Huangfu Qiushui's body shook, and she shook her head. Her face was pale. "Impossible." Li Tianlan said no more. He picked up the teacup and said, "You can go." "I won't." Huangfu Qiushui looked at Li Tianlan with wide eyes, and her voice was stubborn. "If you don't go, you will regret it." "I won't go, I won't go." "Come and kill me," Huangfu Qiushui said fiercely. Li Tianlan didn't speak. In the still gloomy but gradually brightening dawn, he looked at the wind and rain outside the window. His movements were stiff, and his eyes became a little dazed. "I won't." "Let go of me, you bitch." "I won't let go, Li Tianlan, you bastard." "Bitch, let go." "I won't." "Let go of me." "I won't let go, I won't let go, come and kill me." His thoughts went back to Eastern Europe before the end. At this time, he suddenly remembered that when he first saw the master of Samsara Palace in Eastern Europe, in the hotel room, she seemed to be like him now, facing the window, guarding the tea, and watching the wind and rain outside the window. But what was she thinking at that moment? Li Tianlan held the teacup and sighed softly. He stretched out his hand and pointed to the bedroom door. Huangfu Qiushui stood there very disobediently. Instead of going back to the bedroom, she pulled out a chair and sat opposite Li Tianlan. She opened her eyes wide and stared at him. She was like a kitten who had suffered all kinds of grievances but still refused to give up and still insisted. Grievances couldn't be said in the world. It didn't make sense. Li Tianlan's eyes did not waver at all. She was a beauty, a stunning beauty in the world, and also an enemy. There was a slight knock on the door. Li Tianlan answered with a Huangfu Qiushui was about to get up and open the door, but the door had been pushed open. A middle-aged man with gray temples and an ordinary appearance walked into the room with a pot of wine. The middle-aged man was completely the kind of person who could be forgotten at a glance. He was so ordinary that there was nothing special or outstanding about him. He looked a little old and his breath was extremely weak, but he was unusually hearty and enthusiastic when he smiled. "Young master," he called softly. Li Tianlan, who didn't know what to think, looked back, got up at once and walked over. "Uncle Yi, you should rest more now." The middle-aged man's code name was Tian Yi, which was also his real name. Among the nearly 200 elites of the Purgatory of Heaven capital, he was one of the people Li Tianlan was most familiar with. In Li Tianlan's memory, Tianyi disappeared from the Li family's camp less than 6 years ago. At present, his tombstone was still in the Li family's cemetery in Lonely Mountain, so Li Tianlan recognized him at first sight. It's okay. Tianyi smiled, put the wine pot on the table, and sat down. He glanced at Huangfu Qiushui in surprise, but didn't say much. He just said softly, I'm here to discuss something with you, young master. Go ahead. Li Tianlan smiled and looked at the wine pot. Uncle Yi, I haven't recovered from my injury. Let's drink tea today. Huangfu Qiushui stood up, took an empty cup, and was about to pour tea. Tianyi waved his hand and said with a smile, No, I'm happy today, so I want a drink. He took the cup from Huangfu Qiushui's drawer and poured himself a full cup. Li Tianlan's mouth moved, but he didn't say anything. How is His Highness's injury? Tianyi took a sip of wine, was silent for a moment, and suddenly asked. Li Tianlan was stunned for a moment before he understood who Tianyi was talking about. He frowned slightly and shook his head. He is still in a coma. His injury is very serious, and his foundation is completely destroyed. But the immortality seal is a unique skill that can reshape the foundation. But at present, even if he can recover, it will take a long time to recuperate, and, he paused and said calmly, how can there be a unique skill that can really reshape the foundation? The immortality seal is also flawed. Even if it can be recovered, it will be difficult for him to return to the peak state when he was in Eastern Europe. Tianyi held the wine cup, and his eyes were a little complicated. During the trip to Eastern Europe, the Purgatory of Heaven capital had suffered heavy losses. Li Guangtu was seriously injured and in a coma. The Purgatory of Heaven capital had been in chaos to varying degrees. This was just an internal problem. In East Island, Jifeng Sword Training School and Wuji Palace were also eyeing covetously. Li Guangtu's state and the future of the Purgatory of Heaven capital were almost inseparable. Actually, inside the Purgatory of Heaven capital. Young master, you should. Tianyi took a deep breath and hesitated, as if it was difficult to speak. I know. Li Tianlan said calmly, he doesn't like me. He even wanted to kill me, right? Tianyi's face changed slightly. The Purgatory of Heaven capital is the Li family, but it belongs to him. But Uncle Yi, does the Purgatory of Heaven capital really belong to him? Li Tianlan asked. Tianyi smiled bitterly. How is that possible? There are many old guys in the Purgatory of Heaven capital like me who watched the young master grow up. How can they give up the young master? Li Tianlan nodded and poured himself a glass of wine. It's a good thing, but also not a good thing. Tianyi sighed, nodded, and said nothing more. There were still forces supporting Li Tianlan in the Purgatory of Heaven capital, but the Purgatory of Heaven capital, which belonged to deity, obviously did not regard Li Tianlan as the successor of the Purgatory of Heaven capital. This was an irreconcilable contradiction. It was good because in the process of Li Tianlan controlling the Purgatory of Heaven capital in the future, there would be forces supporting him to help him. It was not good because the Li family, which had been down for a long time and had not really risen, could not afford the so-called civil strife. This was undoubtedly a thorny problem. It was impossible for him to give up the Purgatory of Heaven capital. And with Li Guangtu's stubbornness, he was destined not to compromise. Who wants to kill me? Li Tianlan asked suddenly. Tianyi was stunned. This sentence was extremely harsh, but it was also the truth. Most of the members of the Endless Forest Palace, Longevity Palace, and Undying Palace are loyal to His Highness. Tianyi said slowly. Dawn, Daybreak, and Phoenix. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and nodded. But most people in the Hall of Heavenly Death will support young master. Tianyi said calmly. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows and was about to speak when Huangfu Qiushui beside him suddenly stood up and said incredulously, Heavenly Death belongs to the Purgatory of Heaven capital? Tianyi glanced at her and said quietly, strictly speaking, Heavenly Death belongs to young master. You are a Heavenly Death? Huangfu Qiushui subconsciously made a sword-drawing gesture, but when she moved her palm, she remembered that the autumn water sword had been taken away by Li Tianlan. She stood there with a blank face. Tian Yi keenly noticed Huangfu Qiushui's subconscious movement underwater and frowned slightly. What is heavenly death? Li Tianlan remained calm. Tian Yi glanced at Li Tianlan helplessly and hesitantly. Only now did he realize that there was something wrong with Huangfu Qiushui. Huangfu Qiushui was extremely beautiful, while the young master was truly young and promising. He had thought that this beautiful girl was a little pet that the young master kept in his bed, but looking at her now, it was obvious that this was not the case. 15 years ago, the day before the Qin clan's celebration, the Tongtian port was under martial law. The Qin clan captured nearly 300 spies from various superpowers in one day. That night, the sword light was like the sun. Qin Bingshan, the leader of the Qin clan and an expert of the half-step invincible realm, was beheaded. 6 experts of the thunder-shocking realm of the Qin clan were killed, and Mount Painting House was in chaos. 12 years ago, the Polar Ground Alliance found the ice marrow, which is an extremely important material for making the immortality potion. The Polar Ground Alliance was close to the water, so they collected all the ice marrow and made an agreement with the Wang family to exchange for the immortality potion. On the 3rd day after the news was leaked, the headquarters of the Polar Ground Alliance was ambushed. The ambush lasted for nearly 15 minutes. Someone fought to the death under the full attack of Tyrant. The ice marrow was completely plundered, and the Polar Ground Alliance suffered heavy casualties. 10 years ago, the Emperor of Heng State passed away. 2 assassins sneaked into the imperial palace of Heng State where experts gathered. 6 heirs to the throne were killed in one day. That's why the 6th prince, who still has no legitimate right to the throne, is born. 7 years ago, the cloud silk was found in South America. The Jianghu family of South America and the Heroes Club fought. The men in black in the fantasy world entered South America together. At the most critical moment, all the cloud silk was stolen. Olsen, the vice president of the Heroes Club, who was responsible for guarding the cloud silk, was assassinated in the secret chamber. 7 years ago, the organization that had committed countless crimes in the past 10 years and never failed was exposed. The master of Samsara Palace took action in person. Both the military counselor of Saint were seriously injured. After a premeditated raid, the Samsara Palace seized the cloud silk, but they failed to stop the assassins. Huangfu Qiushui glanced at Li Tianlan. Later, the cloud silk became clothes, and the master of Samsara Palace gave the clothes to you. Li Tianlan listened quietly. Huangfu Qiushui's voice was clear and cold. It was very pleasant to hear. From then on, the Dark World knew the name of this mysterious organization, Heavenly Meteor. The fight with the Samsara Palace was the first and only failure of Heavenly Meteor. No one knew where the headquarters of Heavenly Meteor was or how many people they had. They didn't have a code. To the public, they only had one identity, Heavenly Meteor Warriors. They may not be the most famous killer group, but they are definitely the best hidden killer group. Killers were different from anyone in the Dark World. Even in the Dark World, an assassin needed to hide. The assassin who hid the best was the strongest assassin. Who are you? Tian Yi narrowed his eyes tightly. He looked at Huangfu Qiushui like a tiger choosing its prey. She knew Heavenly Meteor and even knew what Heavenly Meteor had done. This kind of knowledge was definitely not as simple as a pet who only knew how to please a man in bed. Huangfu Qiushui. The girl looked at him with cold eyes. Are you a Heavenly Meteor warrior? The young martial god of the Huangfu family? Tian Ye's face gradually changed subtly. He subconsciously glanced at Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan shook his head. I'm fine. He pointed to the door of the bedroom and glanced at Huangfu Qiushui. Huangfu Qiushui was silent for a while, then turned around and walked into the bedroom obediently. Li Tianlan waved his hand, and an invisible sword intent enveloped them, completely isolating everything from the outside world. He stared at Tian Yi. Heavenly Meteor? Tian Yi was silent and finally smiled. It's the heavenly meteor she mentioned. He could fight with Tyrant and the master of Samsara Palace. He could retreat unscathed. What did this mean? Li Tianlan was silent for a long time before he slowly said, "So, Heavenly Meteor is a part of the Purgatory of Heaven Capital, so he is not the only invincible realm expert in the entire Purgatory of Heaven Capital?" He suddenly frowned. Then why didn't Heavenly Meteor appear in the chaos of Eastern Europe? Tian Yi frowned and slowly said, "The master of Heavenly Meteor Palace has always been in Eastern Europe." Li Tianlan looked at him. In the chaos of Eastern Europe, in the camp of the Purgatory of Heaven Capital, he only saw two real experts, Dawn and Daybreak. "Young master, did you remember wrongly? I just said that Heavenly Meteor Palace has always been standing by your side." Tian Yi said meaningfully, "Moreover, it's not accurate to say that Heavenly Meteor is a part of the Purgatory of Heaven Capital. It should be a part of the Li family. But when Heavenly Meteor and the Purgatory of Heaven Capital are put together, it can be regarded as the real Purgatory of Heaven Capital. For many years, Heavenly Meteor has been cooperating with the will of the Purgatory of Heaven Capital, but no one in Heavenly Meteor knows that the god of the Purgatory of Heaven Capital is His Highness Li Kuangtu." He looked at Tian Yi and whispered, "That's why you are the young master of Heavenly Meteor. Young master, don't you understand?" In an instant, Li Tianlan's eyes suddenly became clear. Killer groups, assassin groups. Assassin groups with invincible realm experts. Top assassin groups with invincible realm experts, who had a close relationship with the Li family and had always been standing by his side. He was their young master. He was also their young governor. Sai City, Li Tianlan sighed softly. "Sai City is Heavenly Meteor?" Tian Yi laughed. "So although your highness controls the Purgatory of Heaven Capital, the overall situation has been influenced by Senior Li for so many years." Li Tianlan was speechless for a moment. After going around and around, the Purgatory of Heaven Capital and Sai City were all one. But in the final analysis, it was the Purgatory of Heaven Capital that didn't recognize him, and it was Sai City that supported him. In fact, there was no change. "What about you?" Li Tianlan whispered, "Uncle Yi, are you also a Heavenly Meteor warrior?" "Young master, are you laughing at me?" Tian Yi laughed. Li Tianlan coughed and did not speak. Tian Ye's martial arts strength was actually very ordinary. He was in the Fire Flaming Realm, and he was not even at the peak of the Fire Flaming Realm. With such strength, it was impossible for him to enter the Heavenly Meteor Palace. "In the sequence of the Purgatory of Heaven Capital, I am a Tian Luo." Tian Yi said. "Heavenly Meteor." Tian Luo. Heavenly Meteor was responsible for assassination. It was the sharpest sword. Tian Luo is responsible for intelligence. Tian Yi said slowly, "This time, the people who were captured by the Qin clan in Tongtian port are the backbone elites of Tian Luo. Young master, our strength is actually very ordinary, but in the field of intelligence collection and analysis, we can be said to be real experts. Among the people you saved today, there are the top disguise masters, the top hackers, the most professional private detectives, the best disguise masters. If it wasn't for a mistake that caused our list to be exposed, the Qin clan wouldn't have been able to catch us." Tian Yi paused and laughed. "But for now, although some colleagues were sacrificed, it is also a good thing. Including me, there are nearly 200 people here, which can be regarded as gifts from the Lord of Tian Luo Temple to your highness." "Gifts?" Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. "Yes." Tian Yi nodded. "We are not going back. I heard that young master wants to take root in Tiannan, so we will go there. Young master, in an intelligence organization, we can be regarded as the most important skeleton, the most important framework, and the development of intelligence will be very fast. If young master trusts us, we are willing to be your eyes and ears in Tiannan from now on." Li Tianlan was silent for a long time. The core skeleton of an intelligence organization, the top team of talents, he took a deep breath and laughed. "I couldn't ask for more." Tian Yi laughed and raised his glass. The Lord said that you will definitely like it. Who is your Lord? Li Tianlan suddenly asked. Tianyi paused and shook his head. It's not convenient to reveal it now. When the right time comes, the Lord will appear in front of you. He hesitated and said softly, actually, you have seen him. Well, you should have seen him. Li Tianlan glanced at him, and his eyes were full of persistence. In the past, he always felt that the so-called secrets often represented the past, and he only had a road ahead of him, so there was no need to deliberately pursue anything. But now, facts after facts told him that even the past was also extremely important. The affairs of the world were like a chess game. No one knew when and where a chess piece was placed, and there might be unexpected changes many years later in the future. I don't think there is anything I shouldn't know. Li Tianlan said seriously. Tianyi hesitated, quickly took his hand, and wrote a word in his palm. That was a surname. But Li Tianlan instantly understood when he had seen the so-called Lord of Tianluo Temple. His expression became extremely interesting, and he was a little stunned. It's him? This is a dead move. Tianyi smiled bitterly and said, young master, you'd better not use it unless it's a last resort. Li Tianlan pondered for a long time, then nodded and raised his glass. There's one more thing. Tianyi said slowly, young master, if we talk about combat effectiveness, we really can't make it to the public. If we follow you to Mount Dibbing, I'm afraid we will be a burden. The Qin family caught us and brought us to Mount Painting Tower. They must have made a backup of our identities. At this time, it has been sent to Mount Dibbing. If you want our intelligence organization to run faster, we still need a lot of preparation. At least, we need to prepare a new identity, which is very troublesome. Time is pressing. I think it's better to take them to Tiannan first. Li Tianlan nodded and said softly, okay. Tianyi smiled and looked at Li Tianlan. Young master, it's right to take a temporary rest in Port Tongtian. Be careful when you go to Kanglan City. Li Tianlan glanced at him and asked, why? The Jiang family of Kanglan City holds the amber and is brave and fearless. Tianyi narrowed his eyes. The Jiang family is the most peculiar family in Beihai. In the past hundreds of years, there have been ups and downs. Among the 7 sword-holding families, the Jiang family's foundation can be said to be the worst. But in terms of strength, in recent decades, the Jiang family is the strongest. The Tang family of the Floating Island and the Qin family of Tongtian have been firmly standing among the top wealthy families in the world for hundreds of years. But this is the comprehensive strength. If only in terms of combat effectiveness, the Jiang family can be said to be the first in recent decades. Li Tianlan held the glass and looked at Tianyi. After a moment of silence, he asked, Invincible Realm? Among the 7 sword-holding families, the Jiang family had the Invincible Realm. This was the only possibility. It should be gone now. Tianyi said, the Jiang family does have the Invincible Realm. But countless news have been verified by us in many ways. Because of his age, the Invincible Realm should have fallen from his peak. But even so, if he really goes all out, he may be able to reproduce the strength of his peak. Do you have any information? Li Tianlan asked. It's been a long time, Tianyi smiled bitterly. At present, we can only be sure that he is still alive. As early as more than 20 years ago, he has not fought. In terms of age, he is more than 10 years older than Senior Li. When Senior Li had not entered the Invincible Realm, he had already stood on the divine list. Now he is nearly 100 years old. Young master, you should know what this means. Li Tianlan's eyes focused for a moment. He was 100 years old and had not fought for more than 20 years. As long as any warrior was alive, it was impossible for him to give up martial arts. He had not fought for so many years, undoubtedly to recover his strength. After so many years of recovery, how earth-shattering would it be when one move broke out? The Jiang family of Kanglan, Li Tianlan looked at the wind and rain outside the window and was silent for a long time. Then he slowly asked, what's his name? Heaven Knife Deek. Tianyi said softly. Back then, he was the adopted son of the Jiang clan's old master. According to Old Li, in his era, in terms of saber techniques, he could be considered a true grandmaster of his generation. He was known as the Heaven Saber. Heaven Knife Deek. Li Tianlan looked at the wind and rain outside the window. The wind and rain suddenly became stronger. The dark clouds covered the gloomy sky. Li Tianlan smiled and said, "Let's wait for another day." His eyes were quiet and peaceful, like the vast starry sky, like a bottomless abyss. From his eyes, Tianyi did not see any hesitation, mockery, contempt, or hesitation. What he saw was only confidence, extreme confidence, and indomitable will. So he was not thinking about his trip to Kanglan Lake. The Jiang family of Kanglan Lake in Jiang family of Kanglan Lake. He saw it, but he did not take it seriously. Then what was he waiting for? Li Tianlan looked at the wind and rain outside the window and sighed softly. Tianyi seemed to understand vaguely and said softly, "Young master, are you waiting for the people from the Wang family of Beihai? Do you think they will come?" Li Tianlan asked softly. Tianyi smiled bitterly and did not speak. "Did I not kill enough people?" Li Tianlan asked. Tianyi took a deep breath, poured himself a glass of wine, and drank it up. He finally knew what the young master was waiting for. He was waiting for the people from the Wang family of Beihai, but he was not waiting for a battle. He was waiting for a negotiation. Tianguang's soul lock platform. Autumn water cleaving the world. Divine weapon break the sky. One sword split the mountain. All the way was stained with blood. Li Tianlan almost crushed the entire Beihai province with the power of the whole new era. He was unparalleled in the world, he was full of vigor, and he was invincible. There was a Heaven Saber on Kanglan Lake. Heaven Saber de Quebec. But no one thought that an invincible realm expert who was nearly 100 years old and had declined could stop the heavenly son of the new era. As long as the Wang family of Beihai was not stupid, they naturally knew that they could not stop him. Li Tianlan was waiting for the Wang family of Beihai to compromise and bow their heads, for them to make concessions, and for them to take the initiative to negotiate. He waited calmly with the attitude of a winner. Waiting for another day was the opportunity he gave the entire Wang family of Beihai and the entire Mount Dibing. Such a negotiation was bound to be extremely harsh, but an opportunity was an opportunity after all. However, Tianyi looked at Li Tianlan with some doubts. His doubts turned into questions, and he asked directly. "With the combat capability of young master today, you can completely sweep the entire Beihai province. Why wait for the so-called negotiation and give them the so-called opportunity? When young master comes to Mount Dibing, any so-called negotiation will be meaningless. And at that time, the other party will have no objection." Li Tianlan was silent for a long time. Then, he laughed. It was light, but it contained countless emotions. "I'm thinking of someone," he said softly. The doorbell rang while he was talking. Li Tianlan frowned and looked at Tianyi. The bedroom door was pulled open. Huangfu Qiushui, in a fluttering white dress, walked out and opened the door of the suite. Her voice almost became a little excited and surprised in an instant. She seemed to have more confidence and shouted happily, "Sister." The sound of high-heeled shoes stepped across the floor and fell on the carpet silently. The person outside the door appeared in Li Tianlan's sight. Exquisite, noble, enchanting, and reserved. So beautiful and so sad. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. Some people really couldn't think. Once he thought, she might appear in front of him in the next second. Li Tianlan suddenly wanted to pour himself a glass of wine. But the wine pot in front of him was empty. And the wind and rain outside the window were heavy. He quietly looked at the woman in front of him and took a deep breath. That was Wang Yuetong. Chapter 640. Not all reunions after a long separation were beautiful. Some meetings were crueler than a long separation. It was quiet in the hotel room. Wang Yuetong stood in the living room. In the dark environment, her eyes were as cool as water, and she looked at Li Tianlan quietly. Her exquisite short hair was soft and tidy, and her beautiful and enchanting facial features were slightly powdered. Her close-fitting white professional suit was clean and elegant, and her slim high-heeled shoes were stepping on the soft carpet. She stood very straight, and the former immaturity and liveliness seemed to disappear from her. After being nourished by Li Tianlan, experiencing in Tiannan, and representing the East Emperor Palace in Zhongzhou State, the former little princess gradually matured and became a little woman. She was charming, elegant, cold, reserved, and dignified. She looked at Li Tianlan quietly, and her eyes, which were as cool as water, became gentle and a little strange. At this moment, Li Tianlan's mind was full of scenes related to Wang Yuetong. The rich and varied scenes flickered with different emotions. From the first meeting to the present reunion after a long separation. In a short and seemingly long time, he raised his hand. Wang Yuetong spoke. Her voice was quiet and soft. Her smile was impeccable, and her beauty was almost dazzling. But her words were like a blade, cutting the distance cruelly. The two ends of the living room, with her voice, were instantly far away as if they were separated by the end of the world. "Your Highness," she said softly, "long time no see." The corner of Li Tianlan's mouth moved. His figure was extremely stiff. In silence, he clenched his hands and put them back on the table. "Young master, I'll go back first." Tianyi sighed and stood up, his voice calm. Li Tianlan nodded. Tianyi walked out of the door. When passing by Wang Yuetong, she glanced at Huangfu Qiushui, who was surprised at first but now was at a loss. Huangfu Qiushui blinked, quietly stepped back for a distance, and then quietly slipped back into the bedroom. In the quiet and almost suffocating environment, Li Tianlan finally moved. He pulled out the chair beside him and said hoarsely, "Sit down." Wang Yuetong walked over gently. Her every move carried a kind of perfection cultivated from childhood to adulthood. She had a myriad of manners, as if she was born reserved and noble. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly and whispered, "When did you come to Beihai?" "Your Highness is wrong." Wang Yuetong did not sit next to Li Tianlan, but opposite him. She smiled slightly, but her eyes were trembling. "Beihai is my home. I came here to go home. I came back last night." "Yeah, go home," Li Tianlan muttered to himself. "Speak." Wang Yuetong looked at him tenderly and strangely. Li Tianlan lit a cigarette. In the lingering smoke, his silence seemed endless. "State your conditions." Wang Yuetong said softly, "You've stayed here for one night, which proves that we can negotiate. We'd like to hear your conditions." "Conditions?" Li Tianlan glanced at her. His voice was calm as well. The calmness of both sides fused together and became complicated. It turned into absolute love and reluctance. In the end, the silence turned into an emotion called heartlessness. "Beihai might be able to give you the explanation you want," Wang Yuetong said quietly. Li Tianlan laughed at himself. Of course, he had conditions. But he had never thought that this condition would be stated in front of Wang Yuetong. The cigarette slowly burned out. The messy sound of wind and rain filled the world. The chill of early autumn in Beihai seemed to permeate through the window. It was so cold that it made people desperate. Li Tianlan slowly put out the cigarette in the ashtray. "Hand over all the heads of the Devil Troop and the remaining 6 famous swords of Beihai province. The Beihai Corps must publicly apologize to the Snowdance Corps." He still had many conditions. But these were the 3 most important ones. Wang Yuetong listened quietly. Her eyes became softer and softer, faintly shining. "Is there no other way?" She looked at Li Tianlan and asked softly. Li Tianlan did not hesitate. He shook his head slowly, but very firmly. "No. Beihai will not agree to your conditions. This is beyond the bottom line of our compromise." Wang Yuetong's voice calmed down. It was so calm that there was no indifference or gentleness. Li Tianlan nodded and said, the negotiation was light and breezy. The interaction was light and breezy. The beginning was light and breezy. The end was light and breezy. Everything was over. Including feelings, entanglements, and negotiations. Wang Yuetong stood up. She didn't fight for anything and didn't want to say anything more. Li Tianlan made a condition. Wang Yuetong refused. So be it. I'm leaving, she said softly. Li Tianlan reached out his hand. Wang Yuetong's delicate body, which was about to turn around, suddenly trembled. In silence, her delicate palm was held by Li Tianlan's hand, very tightly. Wang Yuetong did not turn around. Li Tianlan did not speak. Wang Yuetong laughed with a trembling breath. All her perseverance seemed to collapse in an instant when she felt Li Tianlan's temperature. Tears slowly flowed down. Her palms slowly exerted force. She once again thought of the late spring more than 3 years ago, when people came and went in the square of the Sky Academy. That calm and fateful encounter. It seemed that from that time on, she had been approaching him, walking to his side, and entering his world. He rejected and resisted again and again. He was incomparably cold and even indifferent. Wang Yuetong did not think about anything. She was really sure that she had fallen in love with this man. So, regardless of position, opposition, difficulties, and injuries. She was so brave that she threw herself at him again and again. Even if she was covered with cuts and bruises, she did not turn back. And now, in the rainy port of Tongtian, when the chill of early autumn swept Beihai, in front of Li Tianlan, for the first time, she took the initiative to turn around and leave. Li Tianlan took her hand. Tears seemed to be endless. It was not until this moment that Wang Yuetong realized that when she was asked to stay, the pain in her heart would be more painful than when she took the initiative to approach him. The silence behind her continued, as if it would not change for thousands of years, as Li Tianlan held her hand and did not let go. His grip was so strong that it seemed to be able to resist everything. Wang Yuetong bit her lip tightly and raised the other hand to wipe her tears. Her voice was extremely calm. Your Highness, please behave yourself. You are mine. Li Tianlan's voice sounded behind her, hoarse and firm. You belong to me. You are mine. Wang Yuetong cried silently and laughed silently. Li Tianlan did not say that he loved her. This man, even when he asked her to stay at the last moment, was still so overbearing. He said that she belonged to him and only him. Her palm gradually exerted force, as if she wanted to pull out of Li Tianlan's hand. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. I belong to Beihai. Her voice trembled slightly. It had been nearly 2 months. She was in Tiannan. He was in Eastern Europe. There was no conflict between them, no quarrel, and no phone call between them. Before leaving, she still lay in his arms and called him a good husband and a good brother. When they met again, she called him Your Highness. She belonged to Li Tianlan, or in other words, belonged to him. But now she belonged to Beihai. Your Highness, Wang Yuetong said softly, let's break up. You are mine. Li Tianlan raised his voice abruptly and pulled Wang Yuetong into his arms with a sudden force of his palm. The familiar fragrance came to his face. Li Tianlan's face was a little ferocious. He pressed Wang Yuetong's short hair and directly covered her beautiful lips with his mouth. Wang Yuetong struggled hard. She kept patting Li Tianlan's back with one hand, and held Li Tianlan's neck tightly with the other hand. The soft lilac catered to his wildness, and her white teeth bit Li Tianlan's lips. Tears silently flowed down her cheeks. Li Tianlan's lips were bitten until they bled. The blood and tears mixed together, and it was salty. At some point, the two had been tightly hugging each other, and all the forced pretense of modesty was completely shattered. The small hand that patted Li Tianlan's back hooked Li Tianlan's neck. Her beautiful face gradually flushed, and in the dark hall, it was the most gorgeous color. Time passed in the blink of an eye. Wang Yuetong broke away from Li Tianlan. She sat on Li Tianlan's lap. After a long and suffocating kiss, her breath was disordered, and she subconsciously bit Li Tianlan's neck gently. Li Tianlan held her tighter and tighter. I belong to Beihai, fool. In the rapid breathing, she cried out, I'm the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai, the little princess on Mount Dibing. I've lived there since I was a child. Do you know? I remember every palace on Mount Dibing, and everyone in the Wang family of Beihai. I've been on the stage of Formidable Person, and I remember nearly 1,000 names on the stone of Formidable Person. I remember their stories. It's the holy land of the Wang family of Beihai, the holy land of the 8 influential families in Beihai province, and also the holy land in my heart. Devil Troop, do you know who they are? They are my elders, and the elders of everyone in the 8 influential families. You want to go on the stage of Formidable Person, and you want to kill the Devil Troop. I won't agree. How can I agree? I'd rather you kill me than agree, you fool. She held Li Tianlan and cried loudly. Her excitement gradually became low, but Li Tianlan just held her tightly and said nothing. I should have thought of this day, but no matter how I prepared, I couldn't bear to do it. Wang Yuetong whispered, She raised her beautiful eyes, which were red and watery from crying. Her delicate body sat on Li Tianlan's lap and kept trembling. She pursed her red lips and gritted her white teeth. She seemed to have exhausted all her strength. Li Tianlan, she formally called Li Tianlan's name. Let's break up. She got down from Li Tianlan's lap and resolutely broke free from Li Tianlan's arms. At that moment, the whole world seemed to have entered a cold winter. It was a world of ice and snow, without any warmth. She tried to stand up straight and tidied up her somewhat wrinkled clothes. I'll wait for you on Mount Dibing, waiting for you to kill me. Her whole soul seemed to suddenly tremble for a moment. Li Tianlan held Wang Yuetong's hand again. He stood up. Wang Yuetong's body trembled, and she couldn't help throwing herself into Li Tianlan's arms. She cried and said, Let me go. Don't hold me anymore. Let me go. Li Tianlan stood there expressionlessly, letting Wang Yuetong beat his chest with her other hand. He took her hand and pulled her body closer and closer. Wang Yuetong seemed to be tired. She grabbed Li Tianlan's collar with her tender white hand and sobbed. Li Tianlan just looked at her without saying a word. Wang Yuetong, who was mentally and physically exhausted, leaned on Li Tianlan and greedily sniffed his scent. She slowly put down her hand that was grabbing Li Tianlan's collar and hugged his waist tightly. The sky was still gloomy. It was raging. In the dark environment of the room, Wang Yuetong buried her small face in Li Tianlan's arms. She sobbed and whispered, I want it. The 3 simple words were like a wildfire, almost burning all of Li Tianlan's reason in an instant. Without any hesitation, he bent down, picked up Wang Yuetong, and put her on the tea table in front of him. Wang Yuetong shook her head desperately and pointed to the bedroom. Li Tianlan's eyes were red. He rushed over with her in his arms, as if he were holding a light doll. The bedroom door was violently kicked open by him. The white sheets, the white walls, the white curtains, and the white furniture were clean. She sat on the bed in a daze, and her white dress was also clean. Huangfu Qiushui, who was startled, suddenly stood up and stared blankly at Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong, a little confused. No one paid attention to Huangfu Qiushui. At this moment, Li Tianlan only had eyes for Wang Yuetong. Wang Yuetong only had eyes for Li Tianlan. The cold early autumn was blooming with warm spring colors, bright and beautiful. The wind and rain beat the entire Tongtian port. Clear water flowed all over the quiet valley. There were orioles in the valley, and their moving songs surrounded the entire world. They were soft and gentle, crisp and pleasing to the ear. The dreamlike mountains and rivers were changing shape under the supreme will, and the soft sky light emitted an intoxicating white luster. Time passed by. They lingered on. There was no grudge, no position. This was a fairyland, a paradise. The sky was always gloomy in the morning or at noon. The wind and rain were still falling. Wang Yuetong sat in front of the dresser beside the bed and tidied up her short hair. Her mood completely calmed down. She was no longer wild and delicate. She became calm, gentle, reserved, and noble. I'm leaving. Her crisp voice, like that of a oriole, was slightly hoarse. Li Tianlan raised his hand as if he wanted to grasp something. In silence, he slowly put down his raised hand. There seemed to be a lingering ambiguous atmosphere in the air. Wang Yuetong tidied up her clothes and looked at the corner. Her blushing face flashed a touch of unnaturalness. She forced herself to calm down and said, "Let's go together." Huangfu Qiushui curled up in the corner. Her cold and charming face was as red as blood. Her slender legs were closed together, trembling slightly. Her disordered breath caused her plump chest to rise and fall gently. She seemed to be completely immersed in her own world. Hearing Wang Yuetong's voice, she slowly raised her head and looked at Wang Yuetong. Her hazy and charming eyes were full of an incredible look. Wang Yuetong coughed and walked to Huangfu Qiushui in high heels. Her slender heels stepped on the carpet, light and soft, as if she were walking in the clouds. She reached out to Huangfu Qiushui. Huangfu Qiushui shook her head, her face getting redder. Her legs seemed to be softer and weaker than Wang Yuetong's, without any strength. No one knew what this 17-year-old martial god had experienced this morning. Wang Yu, this chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Wang Yuetong seemed to be ashamed, her eyes wandering. For the first time, there was a touch of embarrassment in Li Tianlan's eyes. He wanted a suite with more than one bedroom. But he and Wang Yuetong broke into Huangfu Qiushui's bedroom. There was no reason. Because it was close. Just because it was close and convenient enough. He and Wang Yuetong were in this almost pure white room. No one noticed Huangfu Qiushui, who was also in a white dress. What was even more bizarre was that Huangfu Qiushui had not left. She sat in the corner and witnessed everything from beginning to end. He silently lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, looked at Huangfu Qiushui, and said lightly, "You go." Huangfu Qiushui looked at Li Tianlan in a daze. Her eyes were dazed and blurred. The previous coldness had completely disappeared, and her eyes were full of strange emotions. Not long ago, in this room, she saw with her own eyes Li Tianlan's power in another field. In that state, Li Tianlan was completely like a lion, while Sister Yuetong's fair and tender body was like a little lamb that had no ability to resist. The little lamb was constantly being bitten by the lion, struggling, resisting, begging for mercy, and fawning. No matter what she did, she could not resist the lion's power. The most real scenes hit her heart without any concealment. Somehow, at that moment, Huangfu Qiushui's mind was filled with the image of Li Tianlan splitting the mountain with a sword of the 13-story building level. This man, she could not describe her inner feelings at all. At some point, she felt that she had become Sister Yuetong, the little lamb, trembling under the lion's claws and teeth, delicate and pitiful. She slowly lowered her head. Her legs were still weak. Her face flushed, she shook her head and whispered, I'll go back by myself. I want to take a bath." Wang Yuetong blushed slightly and turned to look at Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan quietly looked at the drifting smoke in front of him. There would be no more accidents. Out of this door, what should go would go, and what should move forward would continue to move forward. Wang Yuetong went into the bathroom to wash her face and whispered, "I'm leaving." Li Tianlan stood up and saw Wang Yuetong out of the suite and into the elevator. In the indescribable silence, the two stood close to each other. They used to be intimate. Just now, they were also intimate. But at this moment, the extremely close distance was like a chasm, completely separating the two. It was still raining in the hotel. The hotel owner stood respectfully in the hall for a long time. Seeing Wang Yuetong come out, he trotted to the front desk and took an umbrella. It seemed that he wanted to hold the umbrella for Wang Yuetong himself. Wang Yuetong shook her head, reached out to take the umbrella, and said thank you. In fact, there was no need for an umbrella at all. In the falling wind and rain, in front of the gate of the hotel, a pure black Rolls-Royce was quietly parked there, and 2 rows of bodyguards in black stood there quietly. Like 2 rows of motionless statues, they spread into the rain. Wang Yuetong stood in front of the door, holding the umbrella, quietly watching the wind and rain outside the window. No matter how sweet the distance was, it was always separation. Li Tianlan was still silent. I love Beihai. Wang Yuetong whispered. She turned to look at Li Tianlan, and there seemed to be thousands of words in her blurred and charming eyes. Li Tianlan looked at her without saying a word. Just like I love you. The two stood face to face, and they could feel each other's breath. Wang Yuetong clenched her hands into small fists. She looked at Li Tianlan and seemed to be waiting for something. Li Tianlan did nothing but looked at her seriously. Will you go to Mount Dibbing? Wang Yuetong looked at him deeply, as if she wanted to carve Li Tianlan into her eyes. Yes. Li Tianlan's voice was dry, but there was no hesitation. Okay. Wang Yuetong laughed. I'll wait for you on the mountain. She reached out and touched Li Tianlan's face. I love this place, and I have something I want to hold on to, just like you. Your Highness, I believe that you will go to Mount Dibbing, and I believe that you will see me. If we meet again, we will be enemies. She looked at Li Tianlan, and her affectionate eyes seemed to contain the whole Beihai. So, don't be merciful. Either you kill me, or I kill you. Li Tianlan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Is there anything you want to say to me? Wang Yuetong asked softly. There was only expectation in her eyes. Li Tianlan glanced at her. After a long and short glance, he shook his head. Wang Yuetong said yes. Her palm left Li Tianlan's face. Her eyes became reserved again. She turned around and walked to the Rolls-Royce. The door was slowly opened. Wang Yuetong stood in front of the door and slowly looked back. In her sight, Li Tianlan stood there, expressionless and frighteningly quiet. Wang Yuetong walked into the car. The Rolls-Royce started slowly. When the huge motorcade was about to leave the hotel, Wang Yuetong suddenly said, "Stop the car." The car stopped and the door was opened. Wang Yuetong pushed the door hard and looked back at the hotel again through the wind and rain. Li Tianlan was still standing in front of the hotel. He didn't move, but he didn't ask her to stay. Under the wind and rain, Wang Yuetong's eyes almost turned red from crying. As if she had no reluctance to leave, she turned around and got in the car. The motorcade left in a mighty manner and didn't stop. Li Tianlan watched all this quietly until Tianyi came over again and stood beside him. Young master, his voice was hesitant. I think, if you don't let her go in the end, she will stay. After a pause, his voice became clearer. Even if she has to bear everything. Because in the last parting, her silence and the 2 times she looked back seemed to be waiting for something. Li Tianlan was silent for a long time before he whispered, I know. He knew, but he couldn't bear to. He could not bear to let her carry all the things that she should not carry. Just like Wang Yuetong, she also knew that as long as she opened her mouth, Li Tianlan might also stop at Port Tongtian and return to Zhongzhou State with all his grievances. But she couldn't bear to. Therefore, he remained silent and did not persuade her to stay. She remained silent and did not ask him to turn back. It was all because he couldn't bear to. She stayed in the North Sea. He is God's soldier's mountain. It was because of their respective standpoints, but it was obvious that neither side wanted the other to bear any burden or suffer any grievances. Therefore, they respected each other's choice to the greatest extent. Even if such a choice was heartbreaking. Li Tianlan did not blame Wang Yuetong. She was still his woman. Wang Yuetong did not blame Li Tianlan. He was still her man. The wind and rain fell. The cold autumn air was like a knife, bringing with it the cruelest things in the world, mercilessly cutting apart the most tender moments. He slowly turned around. He did not blame the world for not being beautiful. He could only blame the vicissitudes of life. End of chapter. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 641. The rain was getting heavier and heavier, and the world seemed to shrink in the wind and rain. As his field of vision stretched forward, the hazy rain and mist slowly spread, and only the scene a few meters in front of him was still clear. The black Rolls-Royce had gradually disappeared in the wind and rain. Li Tianlan stood in front of the hotel and was silent for a long time. The faint light from the sky gradually dimmed. The light in front of the hotel lit up. After a day of heavy rain, his bare feet stepped on the ground, and endless chill enveloped him. He stood silently, as if he had become a statue. The wind at night was getting stronger. After standing for a whole afternoon, Li Tianlan finally turned around and walked back to the hotel. The light in the room was still off. In the dark environment, Huangfu Qiushui sat quietly in the position where Li Tianlan had sat in the morning, looking out the window at the night rain. She looked extremely focused. She seemed to be in a trance, and the sound of Li Tianlan coming in was completely ignored by her. Li Tianlan ignored her. He took 2 wine bottles from the wine cabinet, walked over, and slowly sat opposite Huangfu Qiushui. The sound of the wine bottles hitting the crystal table woke Huangfu Qiushui up. She subconsciously bounced up from her seat and opened her mouth. Li Tianlan looked up at her. Darkness surrounded her white dress. In the light of the night, her skin was so white and tender that it almost glowed. Her long eyelashes blinked, and a pair of infinitely charming eyes looked at Li Tianlan, unusually bright. Her mouth was small, and the corners of her beautiful lips gently opened and closed. There was endless charm in the luster. Li Tianlan withdrew his gaze, poured himself a glass of wine, and drank it up. There were no dishes to go with the wine. In the cold autumn night, he was accompanied by a stunning beauty and a violent wind and rain. The sound of rain roared through the whole city. The lightning tore the night sky, and the vast white flashed for a moment. Li Tianlan, who was leaning against the chair, was illuminated by the pale lightning. He held a wine glass in one hand and looked out of the window, his face calm and almost numb. Huangfu Qiushui's heart seemed to tremble. The emotion at that moment turned into a kind of power called impulse. She gently took 2 steps forward, pulled out the chair beside Li Tianlan, and sat beside him. Very, very close. Her voice trembled slightly. I'll drink with you. Li Tianlan looked at Huangfu Qiushui quietly. The distance between the two of them was too close. He could clearly feel the fragrance on the girl's body and her slightly shaky breathing. He could even hear the girl's intense heartbeat. Huangfu Qiushui looked at Li Tianlan nervously. She didn't know why she did it. But at this moment, she just wanted to do it. Li Tianlan did not let go of the bottle. He looked at Huangfu Qiushui expressionlessly and raised his hand to point to the opposite side. His silent movement brought with it an invisible force. Huangfu Qiushui's body stiffened for a moment, and a faint grievance drowned her like a tide. She stood up in a daze and sat in the seat furthest away from him as Li Tianlan pointed at. Li Tianlan continued drinking. The bottle was empty. Li Tianlan waved his hands. The sword she blew up the wine cabinet. Bottles of wine that had been kept in the hotel for a long time flew over, and then disappeared one after another. Li Tianlan's eyes grew brighter and brighter, and he drank faster and faster, just like the heavy rain outside the window that blocked the light. The light in the room grew darker, and it was silent. Huangfu Qiushui sat opposite him and watched him drink quietly. She was silent for a long time before she whispered, "You love Sister Yuetong very much, don't you?" Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. The 17-year-old girl was persistent and focused when she was serious, and even a little pious. Li Tianlan laughed. He didn't know why he laughed, but he just wanted to laugh. "I don't know." His voice had become hoarse from drinking too much, but his eyes still maintained absolute rationality and calmness. He didn't know. That was his answer. He wasn't sure whether he loved Wang Yuetong or not, just like he wasn't sure whether he loved Dongqing Rushi or not. But they were both his women. The women he cherished most. Li Tianlan looked at the north in a trance. The rain swept from the south all the way to the north, covering the entire Beihai. It was still late at night in the north. In the heavy rain late at night, a row of motorcades was driving on the road to Mount Dibbing. He didn't know what the little woman sitting in the back of the car was feeling. Was it missing? Was it sadness? Was it determination? Or was it entanglement? Li Tianlan didn't want to think about it, but he couldn't let it go. Not because he loved her or not, but because he let her down. He knew that he had let this woman down after all. He had let her down for her devotion and her courage, just like he had let Dongqing Rushi down. Vegetable. They were all his women. In this dark night, someone was heading north, walking in the direction he was about to pass, but they were getting farther and farther away from him. Someone was still lying in bed, and he didn't know if he could wake up in this life. Only Qin Weibai was still in Yuzhou, still waiting for him to go back. He hadn't let her down. Li Tianlan threw away the wine glass, picked up the bottle, and poured a mouthful of wine into his mouth. The wine flowed down his collar. There was a wildfire burning in his stomach that couldn't be extinguished. The more it burned, the more Li Tianlan wanted to drink. He didn't want to let anyone down. But it was true. It was true. Dongqing Rushi was sleeping, and Wang Yuetong was far away. The two of them seemed to have an invisible weight that was pulling his life in another direction. In fact, you don't have to do this. Huangfu Qiushui looked at Li Tianlan and said cautiously, you have proved your strength. I think if you are willing to be with Sister Yuetong, the teacher will not disagree, and, she looked at Li Tianlan, as if she was choosing her words. Li Tianlan looked at her. His eyes were extremely cold. What do you know? This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Huangfu Qiushui bit her lip and stopped talking. Li Tianlan leaned back in the chair and waved his hand to turn on the light in the living room. The light dispelled all the darkness. The soft light flowed through the hall and fell into Li Tianlan's eyes, twisting and trance. Li Tianlan held the wine bottle in his hand tightly and stopped talking. Huangfu Qiushui observed him carefully. Her face was slightly red, but she looked at him attentively and carefully, almost gazing. Her eyes fell on Li Tianlan's bare feet. Li Tianlan had been barefooted since he went up the painting mountain until now. Huangfu Qiushui hesitated and walked into the bathroom. After a while, she came out with a foot basin with a massage function. The clear water swayed in the basin, reflecting her cold and beautiful face, which was a little blurry. Li Tianlan looked at the soft light in the living room motionlessly, as if looking up at the starry sky. Huangfu Qiushui squatted down in front of Li Tianlan. The hem of the white dress fell on the carpet, layer upon layer, like a blooming white flower. Huangfu Qiushui looked at the tools in front of her and Li Tianlan's feet. She bit her lip gently, and her eyes flashed with complicated brilliance. Can you give Qiushui back to me? She asked in a low voice. Her voice was so soft that she didn't even hear it clearly. Li Tianlan didn't respond. Huangfu Qiushui seemed to find an excuse for herself. Her tender white hand stretched out trembling. She held Li Tianlan's feet, put them in the basin in front of her, and carefully washed them. Li Tianlan lowered his head and looked at Huangfu Qiushui quietly. At this moment, he suddenly thought of Qin Weibai. Qin Weibai had also washed his feet. Her gentleness surrounded Li Tianlan little by little, and even made him take everything for granted. But Huangfu Qiushui was different. Qin Weibai was a goddess. But she was also a woman who belonged to him. And Huangfu Qiushui, her tender white palms moved gently in the water. On her snow-white wrist, a green jade bracelet shone softly in the water. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes. He didn't have to think to know that countless people in the whole of Beihai dreamed of holding this pair of noble and white hands and clasping fingers with her. But now, these hands were gently kneading his feet, carefully trying to please him. It was so lowly. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. "Do you know the Jiang family?" he asked suddenly. Huangfu Qiushui shook her head reflexively. Her hands didn't stop moving. After a while, she whispered, "Is it the heaven saber?" Li Tianlan said, indifferently. Huangfu Qiushui hesitated and struggled, but she couldn't help it. She shook her head, but said honestly, "I've seen Grandpa Heaven's saber. At his peak, Grandpa Heaven's saber once entered the top 5 on the divine list. I haven't seen his saber, but I heard from my teacher that his saber is very domineering. In recent decades, he is the best saber user." "Can I kill him?" Li Tianlan asked. The Heaven Saber Emperor had sealed his saber for more than 20 years and had been recuperating for more than 20 years. He didn't expect to hear any information from Huangfu Qiushui, so he asked casually. Huangfu Qiushui lowered her head and served Li Tianlan's feet. She whispered, "I don't recommend you go to Kanglan Lake." Li Tianlan twitched the corner of his mouth and didn't speak. He casually raised his foot and stepped on Huangfu Qiushui's skirt. Huangfu Qiushui's delicate body trembled slightly. She lowered her head, and there was no anger in her infinitely charming and beautiful eyes. Instead, they became softer. She hesitated, slightly lifted her skirt, wrapped Li Tianlan's feet, and gently wiped them. At that moment, Li Tianlan saw a piece of snow-white and smooth calf. "First time washing someone's feet?" Li Tianlan asked carelessly. Huangfu Qiushui's small hands shook. She raised her head and looked into Li Tianlan's eyes. She whispered, "Yes." Her hands could be said to be the noblest hands in Beihai province. She was the student of summer solstice, the inviolable goddess in the eyes of countless peers in Beihai, the young martial god of the Huangfu family, and the future sword-bearer of Qiushui. How could such a pair of hands be used to wash a man's feet? It was a complete blasphemy. Li Tianlan laughed. He breathed out the smell of alcohol, but his eyes were extremely cold and playful. He lifted his feet along the soft hem of her dress, lifted Huangfu Qiushui's chin, and touched her face with his toes. Her face was extremely soft and delicate, almost fragile. "I'm so honored." His feet rubbed Huangfu Qiushui's face. He said lightly, "Why?" "You. I want Qiushui to give me back." Huangfu Qiushui's breathing became completely chaotic. Li Tianlan's feet slid gently on her face. This was a scene that could completely make all the teenagers in Beihai province lose their minds. Huangfu Qiushui's eyes were a little humiliated. Her face was red, but she looked into Li Tianlan's eyes bravely. Her eyes were cold, with humiliation and complexity, but also entangled with an incomparably clear desire. She did not know why she was like this. She was not Wang Yuetong. So Huangfu Qiushui could be sure that she did not fall in love with Li Tianlan. But what she had been exposed to the most in her life was swordsmanship. The most perfect swordsmanship had an almost fatal attraction in her eyes. Li Tianlan was young enough, strong enough, and strong enough. He broke into her world with the most perfect posture and took away Qiushui, which was equivalent to taking away everything from her. On the Lingtai mountain, she looked at the Tianguang Spirit Lock platform. On the Painting Lu mountain, she watched him split the mountain with a sword, and Qiushui cut the world. Strong, domineering, and indifferent. Invincible and invincible. He was the heavenly son and the perfect figure that Huangfu Qiushui had dreamed of countless times. This had nothing to do with love. It was just the purest admiration, or it could be said to be infatuation. Countless feelings, this chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Her emotions had been rising and falling in her heart. She still remembered that Li Tianlan was an enemy, but she also remembered that she saw Li Tianlan as perfect. And then. Just today. This morning, in the bedroom next to this suite. Her favorite sister was thrown on the bed by him, and the two of them were entangled with each other, completely ignoring her existence. That was a scene that Huangfu Qiushui had never imagined. Li Tianlan was like the strongest lion, gnawing on the white sheep under him, the prey that the conqueror could see. She heard Wang Yuetong screaming, begging for mercy, provoking, and then conquering again and again, crazy and happy. Those scenes almost completely destroyed Huangfu Qiushui's reason. For the whole day, she was in a trance. She thought of Li Tianlan's sword light and Li Tianlan's almost barbaric biting. The scenes kept changing. It turned out that even enemies could hug together and fight on another battlefield. She didn't love Li Tianlan, but at this moment, his feet were mercilessly desecrating her face. The desire in her heart suddenly magnified 1,000 times. She thought of the scenes she saw, and her body seemed to be on fire. She really hoped that she was Li Tianlan at that time and was conquered by him again and again, tonight, now, or anything else. She looked at Li Tianlan's eyes intently. At this time, Li Tianlan could do anything to her. She might resist, but she would not refuse. Because of desire. She longed for his strength to destroy everything about her, to make her fall once, or for a lifetime. Li Tianlan played with her face. After a long time, he slowly put down his feet and said lightly, "I'm not interested in little girls." He pointed to the tools on the ground. Huangfu Qiushui bit her lip hard, slowly picked up the basin and walked into the bathroom. She hid in the bathroom for a long time, washed her face with cold water, and slowly walked out. All the wine bottles on the table were empty. Li Tianlan sat in the chair and slowly fell asleep. Huangfu Qiushui hesitated to wake him up, but stood behind him. "Can you give Qiushui back to me?" she murmured something under her breath. Li Tianlan didn't wake up. Huangfu Qiushui seemed to have put down the burden and reached out to gently knead Li Tianlan's shoulder. The messy wind and rain gradually subsided. Huangfu Qiushui turned off the light. In the dark environment, the sound of rain occupied the whole world. Huangfu Qiushui slowly kneaded Li Tianlan's shoulder, seriously as if she was practicing swordsmanship. A little sword intent rose and fell with Li Tianlan's breathing. He seemed to be sleeping, but also meditating. The perfect sword intent hovered around his body almost all the time. In this way, Li Tianlan was getting stronger almost all the time. Huangfu Qiushui felt the sword light. She was shocked, but more than that, she couldn't extricate herself. She didn't tell Li Tianlan that from the very beginning, she could understand the 13 floors, which represented the supreme achievement of the Chosen One. Although she couldn't understand all of the sword formation. But if he could understand it, he could understand it. From darkness to dawn. The sky broke, and the morning sun was slightly cold. Nearly 200 elites belonging to Tian Luo gathered in Tianyi. He walked into the room and saw Huangfu Qiushui, who was kneading Li Tianlan's shoulder. He smiled and gestured for her to leave. Huangfu Qiushui hesitated and pointed at Li Tianlan. Tianyi shook his head with a smile and walked out quietly. It was still raining. It was getting brighter and brighter. Li Tianlan, who had slept all night, opened his eyes. The gentle kneading on his shoulder continued, and the fragrance of the girl was extremely gentle. Li Tianlan was silent for a while, reached out and patted the small hand on his shoulder, and said flatly, "Qiushui won't return it to you." Huangfu Qiushui said, "Oh," obediently, but her hands didn't stop. She just whispered, "They all left an hour ago." Li Tianlan froze, looking at the wind and rain outside the window. After a moment of silence, he said, his voice was calm. And his eyes were calm. Everything yesterday seemed to be completely in the past. In front of him was a new day in Beihai. His journey would eventually continue. Let's trigger. His eyes looked to the north. That was the direction of Kanglan City. Kanglan Lake in Kanglan City. The Jiang family of Beihai held the amber, loyal and brave. The dark clouds drifted north with the wind. Li Tianlan's breath grew quieter. "You," Huangfu Qiushui asked in a low voice, "what are you thinking about?" I'm thinking about the past. Li Tianlan said softly. The past? Huangfu Qiushui blinked her eyes in confusion. There is no past. Li Tianlan said slowly. His past was not good. Dongxing Rushi belonged to the past, and now she was lying in bed. The master of Samsara Palace belonged to the past, but now she had fallen. Situ Tsangyue and Tribulation also belonged to the past, but now they were all seriously injured. The Li family also belonged to the past, but now they were all in the purgatory of heaven capital. Wang Yuetong belonged to the past, but in yesterday's silence, they had gradually drifted away. There was no past, and there was no meaning. I'm thinking about the future. Li Tianlan said calmly. Without the past, he stood in the present and could only think about the future. Are you thinking about His Majesty Sword Emperor? Huangfu Qiushui whispered, if His Majesty returns to Beihai and knows what you have done, then, whether he is in Beihai or not, or whether he returns to Beihai, when he comes back, he should know. Li Tianlan said softly, the Li family is still the Li family. Li Tianlan is still Li Tianlan. This was his future, calm and fearless. In Huangfu Qiushui's strange silence, he slowly stood up. Let's go. The wind passed Beihai, and the clouds passed Kanglan. Forget the past, not afraid of the future. End of this chapter, bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 642. 3,000 miles of Kanglan River flowed into Beihai. Kanglan River was one of the most important waters in Beihai province. It was connected to Beihai. The sound of water surged all day long, vast and spectacular. The continuous autumn water fell from the sky into the river. Large ripples surged rapidly with the flowing water. Li Tianlan stood on the bank of the river, looking at the mainland on the other side of the river through the large water, thinking for a long time. The mainland on the other side was still Beihai province. After crossing Qiushui, Tongtian, and Kanglan, Li Tianlan had walked through half of Beihai province. Kanglan River was the most important dividing line between the north and the south of Beihai province. After crossing this river and going all the way north, he would reach Mount Dibing, which also meant that he had officially broken through half of Beihai province. The premise of all this was that he needed to suppress the island in the center of the river. The quiet and elegant island floated in the center of the river. The island was surrounded by water waves, but because the water was high, it was connected to Kanglan River. Although it was connected to the Tsanglan River, they were not compatible. Amidst the surging river, the surface of the water remained strangely calm due to the flow of the water. This was Kanglan Lake. The lake in the river. The headquarters of the Jianghu family of Beihai was built on the island in the center of Kanglan Lake, in the middle of the whole Beihai province. Li Tianlan looked at the island in the lake quietly. He looked at the city on the other side of the river. I heard that this used to be a sea. Li Tianlan suddenly asked. It's different. Huangfu Qiushui said quietly, according to the historical data of Beihai province, this place used to be much wider than it is now. At that time, the land under our feet didn't belong to Beihai. East Island voluntarily ceded the land under our feet. The Wang family built Qiushui, Tongtian, and Kanglan cities here, and then began to fill in the sea, narrowing the distance between the two lands. To some extent, it was an expansion of the land of Beihai. Finally, the Wang family built an island in the center. In fact, it can still be regarded as a sea, but in the words of Beihai, it became Kanglan River. Kanglan, Qiushui, Tongtian. The Huangfu family was in the northernmost part of Beihai. They had many famous generals and were vigilant against East Island. The Qin clan of Tongtian port was as steady as a mountain, guarding the window of Beihai province open to the whole dark world. The Azure Billow Jiang clan wasn't located in Azure Billow City, but in the center of the North Sea province on the Azure Billow River, forming the most important passageway between the north and south. Loyal, brave and fearless. Amber. Skyblade. Li Tianlan thought silently. The Jiang clan, which had been the strongest among the 7 great sword-bearing clans for decades, was on that island. Li Tianlan was sure that this would be the fiercest battle before he arrived at Mount Dibbing. It was also the battle he looked forward to the most. The invisible sword chi twisted slightly around him. The space around him suddenly dimmed. Li Tianlan stretched out his hand and gently flicked his fingers at the vast river. The condensed sword chi instantly cut through the river water and rushed towards the island in the middle of Tsanglan Lake. This sword did not have any lethality, but it carried an indescribable swiftness. It was as if a shallow crack had been cut open on the surface of the river in an instant. The water was split apart, and the tiny crack spread forward at a rapid speed. Li Tianlan waited quietly. In Huangfu Qiushui's sight, the tiny and condensed sword chi cut through the river water and rushed into Tsanglan Lake. With unparalleled strength and confidence, it directly disappeared at the end of her sight. There were 3 flagpoles in the middle of the island in the lake. Even if it was raining, the 3 flags of different colors were still flying stubbornly. The star flag of Jianghu state was bright red. The flag of the Wang family of Beihai and the star flag of Jianghu state, which were engraved with the sky and the sea, stood side by side on the black base. There was a silver flag in the middle slightly behind the 2 flags. It was slightly lower than the 2 flags in front, and the lines were simpler. A black arc was embroidered on the surface of the flag that flickered with a silver luster. It was simple, but it exuded endless sharpness. The wind blew the flag, and the flag was completely unfolded in the heavy rain. The black arc seemed to have reached the end of the sky sea in a trance, with almost 1,000 pounds. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Majestic fierce momentum. This was the flag and badge of the Jiang clan. The subtle sword chi cut through the river water, pierced through the lake, and rushed into the island. The space of the whole island seemed to be distorted. Wherever the sword intent passed, the space was constantly overlapping and compressed. The sword chi, which had crossed a long distance, was even more powerful and almost became a complete entity. The sword chi passed through the center of the island. The flags of the Wang family and Jianghu state were still fluttering. The silver light drifted down in the air and slowly fell to the ground. Silently, the flagpole hanging the Jiang clan's flag was completely broken. The silver flag fell in the rain and was stained with dirt. The dirt was extremely obvious. It was unknown how many people on the island saw this scene, but no one spoke, and no one did anything. Everyone in the Jiang clan seemed to have sunk into an indescribable silence, not saying a word. There was a hill behind the 3 flagpoles in the center of the island. There was a pavilion on the hill. This was the place with the best view in the entire headquarters of the Jiang family. The Tsanglan River was rushing under the feet, and the vast Beihai was endless. On the left and right sides were Kanglan City and Queen City. Sitting in the center of the pavilion and looking up, one could see the grandeur everywhere. The old man was playing chess in the center of the pavilion, and his chess pieces were placed gently. The sword chi entered the headquarters of the Jiang family in the middle of the game. The old man raised his eyebrows and put down a chess piece casually. In the next second, the flag of the Jiang family fell. Young and vigorous. The old man's expression was calm as usual, and there seemed to be a little smile on his face. But such sword chi, such sword intent, at such a young age, it's really something to be proud of. The flagpole in front of the pavilion fell to the ground. The incomparably real sword intent was still shining. The light was not dazzling, but it tore the surrounding air vaguely. A void seemed to suddenly appear under the gloomy sky. The void rotated slightly. The real sword energy gradually became illusory. An extremely delicate small sword stayed where the flagpole was before it fell. The sword vibrated slightly in the air, constantly changing its shape. It grew longer and longer, and it became more and more blurry. It was indeed a sword. It seemed to be real and illusory at the same time. It hovered in the air, and everything around it, including the sword, seemed to be transparent. The old man squinted at the transparent void, feeling the indistinct sword intent, and smiled softly. His smile was calm and natural, with the traces of age. The old man was already very old. His sparse hair was pure white, and his eyebrows were almost completely gone. His skin was still bright and clean, with very few wrinkles, but it was extremely loose. He guarded the chessboard, his body hunched as he looked at the almost completely invisible sword. There was no frightening light in his eyes, only a kind of indifference and peace that made people drowsy. 13 floors, one sword to split the mountain, the old man whispered to himself. If I'm not wrong, this is the void sword of the 13 floors? You have a good memory. The beautiful mature woman opposite the old man said with a smile. She put a black chess piece on the chessboard in her white palm, and asked softly, how sure are you? I'm old, and I don't have any confidence at all. The old man squinted and smiled. But there are some things that can't be done without confidence. The young man of the Li family broke my flag, so I have to try to break his sword. The people on the island finally started to move. Jianghu, the current patriarch of the Jiang family, personally led the team. They took a boat into the lake and went straight to the opposite shore. The woman watched all this quietly. When has Beihai ever been so down and out? She watched the boat disappear into the distance and murmured to herself. Ups and downs are all fated. In life, I've seen people who have triumphed along the way, but I've never even heard of families and forces that have triumphed throughout the ages, let alone seen one. North Sea's foundation is now completely stable. At this point, a momentary victory or defeat doesn't mean anything. As long as we have Beihai, we can have everything. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. The old man looked down at the chessboard in front of him and said slowly, the child of the Li family came to Mount Dibbing just to ask for an explanation. He took away Qiushui and ended all generations. In fact, it's nothing. The famous general troops suffered heavy losses, and the heavenly formation was broken. The Qin family needs to recuperate for the next few decades. As for the Jiang family, even if I die today, it's nothing. Even if he really breaks through the whole Beihai, so what? Beihai is just a temporary failure. He won't destroy Beihai. Even if he wants to, he doesn't have the ability. I met with that person in your family not long ago and mentioned Zhongzhou State. Now the situation is still clear. He also mentioned Li Tianlan, but he didn't take it seriously at all. It's not because Li Tianlan is not strong. Today, no one can deny his potential, especially after the end of the chaos in Eastern Europe. If he can break through Beihai, he can sweep the dark world. However, even if he finally becomes the chosen one and builds a stronger force than Beihai, Beihai is still Beihai. The 7 sword-holding families surround and protect the Wang family. Beihai is one. With our current strength, the last thing we need to worry about is foreign enemies. As long as we can stabilize internally. There was a bitter smile on the woman's mature but age-free face. For so many years, he has been emphasizing the dignity of the Wang family of Beihai to the outside world. His every move was like that, but he ignored some internal problems. When he found out, everything had already taken shape. It's not that we didn't try, but at present, it doesn't help at all. Wang Tianzong hid himself. Wang Xiaoyao entered the invincible realm. Wang Qinglei was ready to make trouble in Eastern Europe. The problems brewing inside the Wang family of Beihai were becoming more and more obvious. Any powerful force that was not afraid of foreign enemies often split from the inside. Today, the 7 sword-holding families were still calm. But the Wang family, which was guarded by them, had begun to crack inside, and it became more and more obvious. If Li Tianlan really broke through Beihai, Wang Xiaoyao would not care. Wang Qinglei would not care. Now Li Tianlan came to ask for an explanation for the cause and effect of Wang Tianzong. When he really went to Mount Dibbing, he would trample on Wang Tianzong's dignity and the dignity of the 7 sword-holding families. The boat passed the river and entered Kanglan Lake. The woman looked at it quietly for a long time before turning her head silently. The old man was still studying the chess game in front of him, with no distractions. The woman stood up, bowed deeply to the old man, and whispered, "Old man, please." She knew what her request meant. She also understood that the old man was ready. Only when he was fully prepared could he look so calm. Today, the dignity of Mount Dibbing and the 7 sword-holding families was almost all tied to the old man's saber. Heaven Saber de Quebec. Today, after more than 20 years, he was still the strongest saber in the dark world. The old man did not speak, but looked up quietly at the boat that was getting closer and closer. 20 years of saber cultivation. At the age of more than 90, he forcibly recovered to the peak state. The strongest saber, the most brilliant saber light. Everyone knew the consequences of doing so. This was destined to be the most brilliant outbreak in the old man's life. No matter whether he won or lost, his ending was doomed. He would be the first invincible realm expert to be crushed by the general trend in the new era. And all this was just the beginning. Just the beginning. He thought of what Li Tianlan said in Yuzhou. He was the overall situation. It was also the general trend. DK took a deep breath and straightened his body little by little. His surname was not Jiang. However, this was also his beloved family, his beloved Beihai. So, to some extent, he had no choice, just like Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan had no retreat. DK would die. In the roaring wind and rain, the old man held a chess piece in his hand and muttered to himself, "The strongest sword formation." End of this chapter, bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 643. The exquisite boat slowly stopped on the shore. The woman in the pavilion was no longer in the mood to play chess. She looked at Li Tianlan and Huangfu Qiushui standing on the boat and was silent for a while. Then she said softly, "Old master, I'll go talk to him." DK nodded and said nothing more. The woman turned and left. In the sound of some hurried footsteps, a middle-aged man solemnly walked up to the pavilion with a tray. There was a pot of warm wine and a plate of peanuts on the tray. There was nothing else. The man nodded to the woman and slowly walked into the pavilion. DK had already stood up. His body was straighter and straighter. At this time, he was lowering his head and fiddling with the black and white chess pieces on the chessboard. This game was far from the final stage, so it was natural that the winner could not be seen. The old man held the white chess piece and placed it. His moves were not exquisite, but the black flag in his other hand was frequently used. The strangulation of the black and white chess pieces had completely turned into a one-sided crushing. The old man watched with great interest that the black chess pieces could no longer turn the situation around. He slowly smiled, happy like a child. The middle-aged man held the tray and stood motionless in front of the old man. Looking at his smile, his heart suddenly ached and his voice became hoarse. "Old ancestor, the wine you ordered." "Tonghui, sit down." DK smiled and waved his hand, motioning the middle-aged man to sit down. "How is our Yang Yang and your little Bao?" "Very good. Some time ago, they told me that they would go on a trip after graduation." The middle-aged man felt sad, but he forced himself to smile. He was Jiang Tonghui, the younger brother of Jiang Tongya, the patriarch of the Jiang clan. In the Jiang family, he could be said to be the real second in command. At this time, looking at the old ancestor's increasingly strong spirit, his heart was empty. DK's surname was not Jiang. When the old master of the Jiang clan took him to this island, not to mention Jiang Tonghui and the others, even their father was still a child. When they were born, DK had already become the famous Heaven Saber in the dark world. He had been staying on this island for many years, and because of his existence, the Kanglan Jiang clan had become the most powerful sword-wielding force in decades. Family. DK's surname was not Jiang, but he had the highest status in the Jiang family. Whether it was before or after he sealed his blade, this old man who had truly dedicated his life to Kanglan and the Jiang family had never interfered in the affairs of the Jiang family. Most of the time, he stayed in this pavilion, watching the surging river and the mighty North Sea. He was silent, but the entire Jiang clan became extremely confident because of his existence. But today, the corner of Jiang Tonghui's mouth moved, and he suddenly whispered, "Patriarch, there's still time." His voice trembled with pain as he muttered to himself, "There's still time." DK, who had sealed his blade and recuperated for more than 20 years, was destined to need time to forcefully recover to his peak state at the age of 90. If he did not want to die, there was still a way. DK glanced at him, and for the first time, a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. "Do you know what you're saying?" Jiang Tonghui lowered his head and gritted his teeth. "Patriarch, I'm not afraid of death. This island of the Jiang family is built with our blood. If possible, I'm willing to personally lead the elites of the Jiang family to fight against Li Tianlan. At worst, you can't represent the Jiang family." DK said calmly, "In the eyes of some people, if I don't fight, no matter how many people the Jiang family sends, they are cowards. This has nothing to do with cowardice." Jiang Tonghui whispered, "It's whether it's worth it or not." DK raised his head and looked at him. He was quiet and did not say a word. This time, it's obvious that His Majesty didn't do a good job. There's no right or wrong, but he didn't do a lot of things last night. That's why Li Tianlan swept the North Sea today. Strictly speaking, Li Tianlan just wants an explanation. This is a matter of Mount Dibbing. Patriarch, I don't think it's worth it to fight with him. Many people also think it's not worth it. Jiang Tonghui's voice was hurried. DK looked at him and suddenly laughed. "Who else thinks it's not worth it?" Jiang Tonghui's face was slightly pale, and he did not speak. "Wang Xiaoyao? Or Wang Qinglei?" DK took the initiative to ask. Jiang Tonghui smiled bitterly, wanting to say something but stopping on second thought. "Stay away from them." DK said calmly, "My surname is not Jiang, but I have always regarded myself as a member of the Jiang family, and the Jiang family has always regarded me as one of their own. Now in the family, I have the highest seniority. For so many years, I have never asked you for anything, but recently." DK looked into his eyes. "I have to ask you, or an order. Stay away from them. I'll talk to your elder brother later. During this time, put down the family affairs and go out to relax." "Patriarch," Jiang Tonghui's face changed slightly. "Why?" "To keep you alive. To keep the Jiang family intact." DK snorted coldly and said slowly, "How dare you get involved in the internal affairs of the Wang family? Pig brain. It's not clear whether they are enemies or friends. How dare you get involved? I'm not sure about Wang Qinglei, but how can Wang Xiaoyao be so simple? You are a member of the Jiang family, a member of the sword-holding family. It is the responsibility of the sword-holding family to protect the Wang family. But there are some things that you can't touch. Don't you understand?" DK paused and laughed at himself. "As for me, I'm an old man. Heh. My grandson's son is dating your daughter. What else can I not accept after living to this extent?" He flicked a drop of wine from the flagon and wrote 4 words on the table. "For hundreds of years, this has been the insistence of the Jiang family. I have lived for a long time, but I dare not live up to these 4 words. You, a young boy, can't live up to these 4 words. You don't deserve it. Do you understand? Loyal, brave, and fearless." Jiang Tonghui looked at the words written by DK and remained silent. DK waved his hand, "Go." Jiang Tonghui stood up, slowly turned around, and walked out of the pavilion. It was windy on the Kanglan River. The wind blew through the pavilion, and the rain poured in diagonally. DK sat alone in the pavilion, picked up a peanut and put it in his mouth. He looked at the 4 words on the table in silence for a long time. The boat stopped on the shore. Li Tianlan still stepped on the flat ground with his bare feet, quietly staring at everything on the island. Countless sword intents flew from the center of the island and gathered in front of him, layer upon layer. The sword of the void was constantly vibrating in the center of the island, forming a connection with the 13th floor. From the shore to the center of the island, almost all the sword intents passed through was the domain of the 13th floor. Li Tianlan penetrated through, this chapter is not over. Please turn the page. The domain felt everything around it and was silent for a long time. Your Highness, you've worked hard all the way here. I've asked people to prepare a banquet. If you don't mind, you can taste the special delicacies of our Kanglan River. Jiang Tonghui, the patriarch of the Jiang family, led the two to the island, his voice calm. The patriarch of the Jiang family, who was over 50 years old, could be said to be the most low-key one among the 7 sword-holding families. Before DK sealed his saber, the Jiang family was completely shrouded by DK's saber light. After DK sealed his saber, Dijiang, whose real name was Jiang Hongwei, became more and more dazzling under the guidance of Wang Tianzong. Among the patriarchs of the 7 sword-holding families, Jiang Tonghui was the most easily ignored one. But in Li Tianlan's eyes, he was also the most unfathomable one. Li Tianlan glanced at him and suddenly said, "Before I came to Kanglan River, I heard that among the 7 sword-holding families, the Jiang family is the strongest. The saber formation, the sword formation, the raging fire formation, the ice formation, and the thunderclap formation, layer upon layer, can evolve into a real invincible formation. Do you look down on me too much, or does the invincible formation not need much cooperation at all?" In his perception, the island was completely empty. It might not be accurate to say that it was empty. But in all directions, Li Tianlan did not feel any hostility or killing intent. It was calm everywhere, as if everyone regarded him as a real guest in Kanglan River. "It's because we think too highly of your Highness," Jiang Tonghui said quietly. "Even if it's the invincible formation, it can't exert much power in front of the 13 floors. In that case, why bother? The old ancestor is already waiting for your Highness. When your Highness is ready, the old ancestor will fight with your Highness." Heaven Knife Deek? Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows and asked, "Only him? One person is enough." Jiang Tonghui said in a deep voice, "The old ancestor can't beat you alone, and neither can the Jiang family. If the old ancestor can beat you alone, why do we need others?" Li Tianlan slowly put away the domain of the 13 floors. He had been prepared that maybe he would not meet Dijiang on the trip to Kanglan River, but he did not expect that he would not even see the invincible formation of the Jiang family. Here, he only had one opponent. Heaven Knife Deek. This battle was destined to be extremely tragic, but for the entire Jiang family, it was the best. Li Tianlan finally saw the real magnanimity and calmness that belonged to a wealthy family in the Jiang family. Even if the Jiang family did not use the invincible formation and Deek used his saber alone, in the whole Beihai, who dared to say that the Jiang family did not go all out? "Lead the way." Li Tianlan said calmly, "No matter the outcome of this battle, I have to propose a toast to the old master. No matter the outcome of this battle, I have to propose a toast to your Highness." Jiang Tonghui leaned sideways and stretched out his hand, neither servile nor overbearing. "If you win, I will propose a toast to your Highness's glory. If you lose, I will propose a toast to your Highness's courage." Li Tianlan let out a long laugh and took Huangfu Qiushui directly to the buildings on the island. On the island, the Fearless Hall, which would only be opened when the Jiang family received the most important guests, was filled with the aroma of wine and food. Jiang Tonghui took Li Tianlan and Huangfu Qiushui to the front of the Fearless Hall, reached out and said, "Please," but did not go in himself. Li Tianlan did not think much and pushed the door open casually. Under the gloomy sky, the Fearless Hall was lit with soft light. The light shone from every corner of the hall and filled the whole hall. Li Tianlan was stunned. There was a woman sitting in the hall full of light. The woman was dressed in a black ancient costume embroidered with golden patterns. Her sleeves were loose, and her hair was coiled up. Her beautiful face, without any trace of age, was calm. She looked at Li Tianlan quietly with her deep eyes, and her whole person was indescribably noble and peaceful. Li Tianlan suddenly thought of Wang Tianzong on the last night in Eastern Europe. Under the polar night sky, the Sword Emperor, who swept the world, was also dressed in a black ancient costume embroidered with golden patterns. He was also inviolable. He looked at the woman's face. The beautiful face was calm with a touch of majesty, which invisibly diluted the enchantment between her eyebrows. Li Tianlan had never seen her. But this face was indeed familiar. This face was very similar to Wang Yuedong's. No, it should be said that Wang Yuedong's appearance was very similar to hers. His heart moved slightly. Behind him, Huangfu Qiushui's soft voice had already sounded. "Teacher?" She was a little surprised and trotted to the woman's side. Her incomparably charming little face suddenly became a little aggrieved. She pulled the woman's sleeve, wanting to say something but stopping on second thought. With this word "teacher" alone, Li Tianlan no longer doubted the woman's identity. The hostess of the Wang family of Beihai. Summer Solstice. It was not DK who was waiting in the fearless hall, but Summer Solstice, whom Li Tianlan had never expected. She came to Kanglan in person. Summer Solstice gently held Huangfu Qiushui's palm and laughed softly. "Qiushui is lost?" Huangfu Qiushui's little face blushed and she secretly glanced at Li Tianlan. She knew that the teacher was talking about the autumn water sword, but at this time, she felt that the teacher was referring to something. "It doesn't matter." Summer Solstice pulled her to sit beside her, touched her soft hair, and whispered, "Let the old master here get it back for you later. If he can't get it back, you can get it back by yourself when you are strong in the future." Huangfu Qiushui was silent and nodded obediently. Summer Solstice turned to look at Li Tianlan, who still looked calm, and smiled softly. "This is the first time we have met." Li Tianlan coughed and nodded. He hated Wang Tianzong, but he had no bad feelings for the hostess of the Wang family of Beihai who had always ignored the affairs of the world. And because of Wang Yuetong, he always felt a little strange about Summer Solstice. "I've always wanted to talk to you, but I haven't found the right opportunity." Summer Solstice got up and poured a glass of wine for Li Tianlan. She sat down again with an elegant and soft posture. "Do you have to go to Mount Dibbing?" Li Tianlan slowly reached out to hold the wine glass and nodded. "I have to go." "What if I make a move?" Summer Solstice looked at him with calm eyes. "You are very strong now, and so is the 13th floor. But I can be sure that if I make a move, you can't go to Mount Dibbing or even leave Kanglan City." Li Tianlan drank up the wine in the glass, looked at Summer Solstice, and said seriously, "I'm really no match for you now, but I heard that you are in poor health. If you make a move against me, I don't know if I will die, but you will definitely die. As you said, I'm not sure if I will die, but if I make a move, you will definitely die." Summer Solstice said calmly. Li Tianlan was silent for a while. "This chapter is not over. Please turn the page." After a while, he asked, "Do you dare to make a move?" "Why not?" Summer Solstice asked with a smile. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "If you dare to make a move, Sword Emperor would have killed me directly in Eastern Europe." This was a problem that the Dark World was well aware of. Wang Tianzong killed the traitor tyrant in Eastern Europe. But he didn't kill Li Guangtu and Li Tianlan, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't. It was also because of this that the Dark World finally determined that Wang Tianzong was in a very poor state. If he was really in his heyday, he would not hesitate to kill Li Guangtu. Even if he didn't kill Li Tianlan, he would completely crush all his foundations. The reason why he didn't do so was that the whole Dark World thought that Wang Tianzong's injury was almost out of control. In the case of his injury not healing, he obviously didn't want to face the complicated situation of the whole purgatory of Heaven Capital and even the Li family's hidden power for many years after the death of Li Tianlan and Li Guangtu. After all, even if Beihai was not afraid of foreign enemies, there were still internal troubles. "I'm not the same as him." Summer Solstice said softly, "Women are crazy, especially when they really fall in love with a man. They are willing to do anything for their man and bear any consequences." Her eyes were indifferent. "Tianzong doesn't dare to do it, but I dare. I don't have the responsibility of being a patriarch. I have always been a very selfish woman. After I kill you, I don't care what happens to Beihai or the 7 sword-holding families. In my heart, as long as my man and my children live well, I will be satisfied. Even if Beihai is destroyed, what does it have to do with me? My family or my children are enough. She tilted her head. At that time, Tianzong was not prepared enough and didn't dare to do anything to Li Guangtu. It was I who united with Kunlun City and set off a case of treason. I dared to do what he didn't dare to do. Why do you think I didn't dare to do it? Do you know the identities of the 3 members of the devil troop you met in Shushui? Summer Solstice looked at Li Tianlan quietly. Before they became devils, one was my father, and the other 2 were my uncles. Tianlan, I sent them out because I really wanted to kill you. Li Tianlan's palms suddenly trembled, and a little wine in the cup spilled out. He looked up at Summer Solstice. Summer Solstice was also looking at him, and there was no expression on her beautiful face. Li Tianlan was silent for a long time before he slowly said, "If that's the case." He picked up his chopsticks and pointed to the sumptuous dishes in front of him. "Why didn't you kill me?" "Because I didn't want to," Summer Solstice said with a smile. She meant what she said. She dared to kill Li Tianlan, and she had put it into action. So it was not that she didn't dare, but that she didn't want to. It was not that she didn't want to give up Beihai, but she didn't want to give up Wang Tianzong. Even if it was a lightless world and a dreamless world, he was still there. Even if she couldn't see him for the time being, such a world was still extremely beautiful for her. Li Tianlan was silent for a moment and asked, "How is the Sword Emperor's injury?" "Very bad," Summer Solstice said slowly. "That sword strike caused him a lot of trouble. That's why I came to see you today." Li Tianlan looked at her and didn't speak. The Eastern European sword strike is almost eternal. The master of Samsara Palace and Shenyuan Feng are part of the reasons for it to be able to do this. The 13-story building is the main reason, right? Summer Solstice said softly. Her tone was extremely domineering, leaving no room for negotiation. "I want to take a look at the sword formation of the 13-story building." Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. He thought about it seriously and opened his palm. Countless sword energy began to change around him. One after another, delicate little swords emerged around him. Tianguang was on Lingtai Mountain. The divine weapon was on Picturesque Mountain. There were 11 swords left in the 13-story building. The 11 swords slowly rotated around him, with some extremely profound law. Li Tianlan looked at Summer Solstice calmly and frankly. He didn't believe that anyone else in the world could understand the 13-story building except him. Wang Tianzong might be able to, but he was destined not to see it. Summer Solstice looked at it quietly for a long time. The 13-story building with only 11 swords had 2 obvious flaws. But the flaws were so obvious, like some kind of trap, with endless changes. The boundless sword intent built an almost eternal sword formation, with Xianyuan Fang's own spirituality, operating on its own. Summer Solstice couldn't describe that feeling. If she had to describe it, maybe there was only one word. Vast. Vast like the starry sky, it was a kind of almost infinite power. Summer Solstice took a deep breath. Her expression was solemn and even awe-inspiring. "This is the most perfect sword formation I have ever seen in my life." Li Tianlan looked at her and didn't speak. Summer Solstice was silent for a while and suddenly said, "I know a name." Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows and asked subconsciously, "Who?" "Dongqing Huangtu." Summer Solstice said calmly. Li Tianlan's heart suddenly beat faster. What kind of person is she?" Summer Solstice looked at him with a complicated look in her eyes. "I said I know a name, but only a name. I heard this name from Qin Weibai. Dongqing Huangtu, she said he was the chosen one. She said that in the last battle of Dongqing Huangtu's life, there were people from the Wang family of Beihai, including a woman." Li Tianlan looked at her. "It wasn't me," Summer Solstice said calmly, "and before Qin Weibai mentioned this name, I didn't know who Dongqing Huangtu was. And I can tell you for sure that in the past 200 years, I am the only female invincible realm expert from the Wang family of Beihai. In the past 200 years, including the 7 major sword-holding families of Beihai, I am also the only female invincible realm expert. But I didn't participate in the siege of Dongqing Huangtu. I don't even know who he is. The Wang family of Beihai mobilized all the intelligence systems, trying to find traces of Dongqing Huangtu. Summer Solstice looked into Li Tianlan's eyes. Do you want to know our conclusion? The corner of Li Tianlan's mouth moved. Summer Solstice said slowly, there is no Dongqing Huangtu. There is no chosen one. Dongqing Huangtu doesn't exist at all. This is our conclusion. She looked at Li Tianlan and said in a strange voice, then how did the 13 floors come about? End of this chapter, bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 644. For hundreds of years, there were countless truths in the dark world. In this world of the law of the jungle, the strong set the rules, and the rules were the truth. Countless experts rose and fell, and countless truths appeared and disappeared. But from beginning to end, there was only one truth that had never been broken. This was something imprinted in the hearts of everyone in the dark world. The Wang family of Beihai was invincible in the world. For hundreds of years, there were countless ups and downs, and countless storms. The Wang family of Beihai had always been the undisputed strongest force in the dark world. The strongest force naturally had the largest intelligence network in the dark world. If such an intelligence network wanted to find a person, or even just find a clue of his existence, it could be said to be a piece of cake. At least, they could get a lot of clues in the shortest time. But Dongqing Huangtu had no clue. The intelligence network of the Wang family of Beihai was spread out. From beginning to end, what they found was nothing. There was no trace of Dongqing Huangtu's existence in the entire dark world. What did this mean? Li Tianlan's eyes were a little dazed. He quietly looked at the 13-story building floating beside him. The sword light of the 13-story building had unparalleled spirituality. It seemed to feel Li Tianlan's mood. The 11 small swords slowly approached and rotated around him more and more docile. The sword chi of every sword was fusing with his sword will. It was natural and flawless. This was a sword formation that completely belonged to him. It was like a part of his body. He didn't feel the slightest bit unfamiliar with it. He couldn't be more familiar with it. Li Tianlan waved his hand. The 13-story building returned to nothingness. He quietly looked at Summer Solstice and calmly said, I don't believe your conclusion. His voice was steady. But his eyes drifted to other places. He didn't know if Summer Solstice saw his insincerity, but there was a flash of disappointment in her eyes. The whole world was guessing about Wang Tianzong's injury, and Summer Solstice's coming to Kanglan to meet Li Tianlan was enough to explain the problem. Wang Tianzong's injury was not optimistic. After the sword strike in Eastern Europe, he forced himself to return to Mount Dibbing, but his injury was not stable. The internal injury that could almost threaten his martial arts foundation was constantly worsening. Otherwise, Summer Solstice would not have come to test Li Tianlan. She mentioned Dongqing Huangtu and saw the sword formation of the 13-story tower, not to confuse Li Tianlan. Instead, she was also looking for traces of Dongqing Huangtu's existence. She wanted to take a look at his sword formation and find something that could help Wang Tianzong. She was telling the truth. She did not find any trace of Dongqing Huangtu's existence. Not only the Wang family of Beihai, but they also contacted Rothschild and mobilized their spies hidden in various dark forces to look for this name. No. There was nothing. It was complete nothingness. The entire dark world knew that in the past 500 years, there had only been 2 heavenly sons. One was the ancestor of the Wang family of Beihai, and the other was the current sword emperor. However, Eastern Europe's sword and the 13-story building clearly showed that there was still a supreme power. Summer Solstice hoped to find the source of this power. There might be a way to help Wang Tianzong. But it was clear that Li Tianlan knew nothing about it. Qin Weibai is still in Yuzhou. Xia Ji seemed to be a little disinterested. She knows everything. Why don't you ask her? Li Tianlan was silent for a long time. Whether summer solstice deliberately made his imagination run wild or not, at this time, it seemed that there was a ripple in his calm heart. He stood up and slowly walked out of the door. Summer solstice did not stop him. Huangfu Qiushui subconsciously wanted to stand up, but as soon as her butt left the seat, her palm was grabbed by summer solstice. Huangfu Qiushui was stunned and looked at Li Tianlan's back blankly. Summer solstice's palm was very soft, but it seemed to carry great power. Huangfu Qiushui sat where she was and suddenly became a little sad. From autumn water to Tongtian, to Kanglan. She didn't know whether she wanted the autumn water sword back or whether it was her real idea or an excuse. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. It was in front of her. She hadn't got the autumn water sword back. But it was the end of the journey. Li Tianlan's figure was about to walk to the door. His figure paused. Huangfu Qiushui's deep and charming eyes suddenly lit up. She hoped that Li Tianlan could say something to her, even if he wouldn't give her the autumn water sword back. Li Tianlan was silent for a moment and said in a hoarse voice, "How is Yuetong?" Huangfu Qiushui's bright eyes dimmed slightly. Summer solstice's voice was calm, and she smiled calmly and elegantly. She has returned to Mount Dibbing. She is in a good state. She didn't cry or make a fuss. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and said nothing more. He turned around and walked out. In front of the fearless hall, Jiang Tongye, the patriarch of the Jiang clan, stood quietly. It seemed that he didn't expect Li Tianlan to come out so soon. He looked at Li Tianlan strangely, nodded, and said calmly, "Your Highness, the old ancestor is waiting for you." "Where is he?" Li Tianlan asked directly. Jiang Tongwei didn't speak, but his eyes subconsciously looked at the pavilion in the center of the island. The black pavilion was shrouded in the wind and rain, with a touch of incomparable sharpness. Li Tianlan nodded. "Lead the way." The chess game was already messed up. The warm wine was half done. The river went all the way east with the crazy rain, mighty and mighty. DK's old palm gently stroked the railing, squinted at the rushing river, silent like a statue. He could see the fearless hall. He could see the young man brought here by Jiang Tongye. Some sword intent was emanating from him bit by bit, converging into an ethereal shadow. The sword energy entered the pavilion. DK turned around slowly. In his sight, a figure so young that even DK felt a little excessive was standing in front of the chessboard, looking down at the game in front of him. This was a figure that was as faint as smoke. He stood there and looked extremely real, but the sword will around him caused the entire space to become a little distorted. His face, which could not be considered handsome, was calm, but his whole person gradually emitted an indescribable temperament. It was temperament, not aura. It was a kind of natural elegance, or elegance, that was revealed bit by bit with each of his actions. Like a kind of light breaking through the night, it was slowly but irresistibly radiating. "Your Highness is so elegant, it's admirable." DK smiled, without hostility, but extremely calm and gentle. The young man pointed to the chessboard in front of him and shook his head. "Your Highness, do you know chess?" DK asked. "I don't." He turned around and looked at the old man. "Heaven Saber?" "I'm D. Quebec." DK chuckled. He was silent for a while and nodded. "Li Tianlan. You're just one of his sword intent." DK laughed. "But standing here, you're still Your Highness." He poured himself another glass of wine and took a small sip, feeling very nostalgic. Li Tianlan looked at him calmly and said in a flat tone, "I suddenly thought of my grandfather." He said quietly, "In that camp, every time he drank, he was like you." "No, he was even more stingy than you. He could drink a bottle of poor quality liquor for half a year." "Your grandfather," DK thought for a moment and laughed. "I didn't have much contact with him." But that little guy can support the Li family to this point. He is indeed a hero. Little guy, Li Tianlan looked at Dijiang and did not speak. Since he was a child, his grandfather had always been called Senior Li by others. It was the first time he had heard such a sentence from the little guy. Don't look at me like that. It's not too much for me to call him little guy. I had a good relationship with your grandfather's father in those days. Li Tianlan's mouth twitched and he did not speak. DK did not seem to be in the mood to talk about the past. He drank up the wine in the glass and then again. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. He took out a glass. There was not much wine in the flagon. He poured it out patiently. There were exactly 2 glasses. DK smiled and pushed a glass of wine in front of Li Tianlan. He chuckled and said, I'll drink the last glass of wine in my life with your highness. Li Tianlan did not move. Now he was just a sword intent, so he naturally could not drink. Dijiang raised his glass. Li Tianlan thought for a moment and gently raised his hand. His glass floated up under the control of sword intent and touched Dijiang's. The wine in the glass disappeared. DK put down the glass. The Jiang family's hospitality is really unexpected. Li Tianlan's voice was calm. He had thought that he would encounter the fiercest battle in the Jiang family since he entered Beihai. The invincible array of the Jiang family, the heavenly saber of the Jiang family, and the Jiang family would use all its strength to stop him from continuing to the north. But the truth was not like that at all. There was good wine and food in the fearless hall. But facing DK, he still did not feel any sharpness. If time goes back 20 years, maybe it will be as you think. DK thought for a moment. But now, I'm old, and I often don't like a tragic ending. If you and I fight, no one in the whole dark world dares to say that the Jiang family did not use all its strength. Li Tianlan was silent for a moment and nodded. That makes sense. Seemingly getting the answer he wanted, DK smiled with satisfaction, and his words became more and more calm. In fact, you have passed the real test of life and death. That woman came to Kanglan was beyond my expectation. You didn't die, which was even more beyond my expectation. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. I don't know what she came for, but if she came, I couldn't stop her. DK said softly, but the biggest possibility is that she came to kill you. If that woman wants to kill you, how sure are you? Li Tianlan was silent. Summer Solstice was extremely young when she entered the Invincible Realm. After her realm was stabilized, she directly entered the peak of the Invincible Realm. Even among the experts at the peak of the Invincible Realm, she was among the top. If she forced a move, even if Li Tianlan had the 13-story building, he could at most die with her, and that was to cause her injuries. As for living, he was not sure. Maybe the whole Beihai doesn't dare to kill you, but that woman doesn't care about it. DK said softly, back then, Sword Emperor's father killed nearly 30 people in Summer Solstice's family. There are many stories for her to be with Wang Tianzong. But how much affection can she have for the whole Beihai? Among the 7 sword-holding families, over the years, she has a good relationship with the Huangfu family. Her family is from the Xia clan, but she doesn't care about the whole Xia clan. Many people in Beihai will care about the future of Beihai. If that woman goes crazy, she is the most likely to care. Li Tianlan listened quietly. He was silent for a long time before he laughed at himself. It seems that I'm lucky. It seems that I'm also lucky. DK smiled. She won't kill you, so I can wait for you to fight with me. I'm still alive. Why should I let the younger generation of my family bleed? I've never liked a tragic ending. DK took out a sword from under the table. The quaint long sword was crystal clear, like a piece of extremely precious crystal, shining with an extremely gorgeous luster. The Jiang family's famous sword, amber. DK looked at Li Tianlan. Today, you and I will fight. If you win, you can take the sword. If you lose, your highness's unique skills will be left behind. The long sword vibrated slightly on the table. DK looked into Li Tianlan's eyes. Do you dare to fight with me? Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and looked at D. Quebec. He suddenly smiled and said calmly, please. DK's eyes suddenly lit up for a moment. He reached out and patted the table gently. Buzz. The amber suddenly shot up into the sky. At the same time, Li Tianlan stood up directly. His figure twisted for a moment and turned into an incomparably sharp and exquisite small sword. End of this chapter, bookmark for easier reading. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.